And here we are. And welcome back to the Redshirt Sophomore podcast, where we never sit out. I'm your host, Matthew Dawson, and joining us again today is co-host, the C to the D, Chris Dawson. What is going on?
Just excited. Last conference, we're going to be previewing, deep diving into the SEC today. A lot of interesting teams. Obviously, it's the SEC, so national implications, recruiting, NFL draft, everything. Just means more in here. So I'm excited to break it down. Got some good bets, over-unders to take, and interesting players to watch out for that maybe you don't know about or maybe that you should know about.
SEC, 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 SEC. Here we go. I'm pumped. I'm a little partial to this conference because it is the conference in which my team resides in. But I'm pumped. There's a lot of uncertainty in this conference for sure, and you touched on that a little bit. Let's just get into it. What do we say? Let's just get into it. Here we go. Alabama. Gosh, quarterback controversy. First round draft picks gone. 3 of them. Linebacker gone. Safeties gone.
Thank God.
Gosh.
Right?
Yeah, well, yeah.
If you're a Bama fan, I'm sure you're tired of seeing DeMarco Hellams and even Jordan Battle, miss some assignments too. Most the biggest loss there in terms of upgrading addition by subtraction is Pete Golding. And we'll talk about the defense later, but I'm sure Bama fans everywhere are excited about the new possibilities, the old school Kevin Steele, getting back to the Bama way.
Yeah, and look, I could sit here and go in depth about who's going to be starting quarterback. Is it going to be Jalen Milroe? Is it going to be Tyler Buckner? Ty Simpson? Is Dylan Longer going to get some playing time at some point this season? Let's not bore you with that, though. Let's just say there's quarterback controversy. They don't know who it is, and I don't know if they like what they got, which is crazy to say for Alabama at this point. Considering Nick Saban's normally not reactive about those things. But you do get some key returners on the offensive side of the ball, being the entire offensive line. It is not the entire offensive line. You lose Tyler Steen, but I don't think it matters. I don't think it matters. Javian Cohen transferred to Miami. No, it does not matter. This offensive line is ridiculous, right? If there was a year to have like a mediocre quarterback in there that maybe is struggling a little bit, this offensive line is going to do all it can to really help out. And Jason McClellan, I think, is going to benefit from that a lot. What say you?
Well, I think the style of everyone's talking about the style of offense is going to change for this Bama team, and they're going to start playing a little bit more complementary football, which you've seen like most of their national championships they have, with the exception of, well, I guess even you throw in Mac Jones there, I don't think Mac Jones is an exceptional talent, at quarterback in terms of a game breaker, can take over a game like a Bryce Young, like Tua, like Jalen Hurts even at times. A lot of those guys they won with were Jacob Coker, with AJ McCarron and Greg McElroy. I wouldn't call them game managers because I think that's, that term I don't think is really the right term, but I think like in terms of playing complementary football, like I think it's very impactful. I think with the style of offensive line they have, with the deep running back room they have, and even like the wide receivers, they're not very, to be honest, the best things that they bring to the table are it's honestly run blocking. Out on the edge there. I don't love, the pass catchers in that room. They got a couple tight ends that I know they'll like to use, which again helps you with running the football. I don't think it matters who starts game one because it's probably going to be Jalen Milroe, but who knows who plays in week 2. I don't think either of them are super special anyways. So like, I don't think it really matters. I think you mentioned the because I'm actually high on this Bama team. I think I would take the over, but I think the better bet is honestly just taking them to win the national championship, because I think if they survive that schedule going 11-1, right, I think they're going to be well on their way to winning, what is it, 19 championships for them. I think worst case scenario, if I'm wrong, right, and if you, after Tennessee, let's say you lose after week 8, you lose to Texas and at Texas A&M, and then you lose to Tennessee again. Say you have 3 losses, like in that first round, everything goes wrong. I think you're going to see Dylan Longenrum, right, in week 10 against LSU. I think you might as well throw him out there. I think that's the only real way we see him is if they do lose a bunch of games, which obviously I know Bama fans want to see him. But if you're seeing him in that case, obviously you're not going to be upset. You're not going to be happy at all. like we said, it's a tough schedule. I mean, there's reason why it's a top 10, schedule in the country. Texas is not easy. I'm high on Texas. I'm really high on Texas. I think in week 2, is Bama going to be the same team that they are in week 10 when they play LSU? I don't think so at all, which is why I don't want to take the over, because I think, 10-2 and an SEC West champ with loss to Texas still gets them into the playoffs and still gets them like everything they need to do, which is why I'm hesitant to take the over, because it doesn't give them much margin of error. With that, it's like your LSU and Florida State's like taking the over is hard because you have those hard out of conference games, but losing that in week 2 or week 1 with LSU and Florida State, it does not ruin all of your goals. You still have all your goals. You're still not really, you're kind of playing with on thin ice, but you still have a little bit margin of error there for that if you lose the right game, right?
Yeah, I think the over under win total at 10.5. I'm gonna push that. I'm not gonna take over, not gonna take under. I wouldn't even lean either direction. Just because I think, I mean, the schedule's tough, right? I mean, it always is. And defensively, you lose the best defensive player in the country, and you lose the best offense player in the country at the same time. So how do you like? Sometimes it's tough to recover in that way. But defensively, they have Jaheim Otis still, who's going to be a true sophomore monster, right? Tim Smith, I think, is pretty solid over there, like playing D tackle. Dallas Turner's obviously really good. He'll likely be a first round draft pick. And then actually in the secondary, there's a chance I think this team gets better in the secondary.
For sure.
Caleb Downs is a true freshman, but he is that guy. Yeah. So he is that guy. Cooley McKinstry, obviously, as you have on the screen. Fantastic player. In the secondary there. Malachi Moore, he's had a lot of experience, so he's fine. Terry Arnold at times was not great last year, but maybe another year, right? He'll be able to take a step forward. So that'd be nice to see a step from him for sure. So I don't know. I mean, this team's deep. It has some talents in places that you need talents. Just I think quarterback and receiver are really just the biggest questions here.
Yeah, the thing is, I do think why I do am so high on this team is because of the physical brand of football they're going to play on offense and defense. The reason why I'm so high on it is because, first of all, I love that, right? In college football, when you have the athletes to do it and you have the depth, I think this team, like going to the SEC and all these other conferences, is depth after the transfer portal era is so hard to come by. And to be honest, is with a team that doesn't have its stars like Bryce Young or Will Anderson. Like, I think you could pick 4 or 5 players on this team. Nobody's irreplaceable. They have depth everywhere. Nobody's like this linchpin that's like, oh, like if he goes down, everyone's screwed. I mean, obviously you have guys you hope step up and are elite, like Jaheim Otis, like you talked about, Dallas Turner, right? Hopefully you got Deontay Lawson and the Georgia transfer there, like on defense. You'd want a wide receiver to step up. But I think if injuries happen, like I still think this team can absolutely overcome them, which is why I think I'm so high on them to take a future bet, because I think I'm looking at like worst case scenario in terms of injury depth or luck. I don't really see it really hurting them too much. And so that's why I think this team is awesome. The secondary you talked about, I think they got like 8-9 guys that I think I'm pretty high on. Right. They got like 3 corners, you get 3 nickels, 4 safeties, like all guys that like you feel really darn good about. Former high recruits, they brought in some interesting transfers. I would have loved to see them go out and get a guy like Dominic Lovett, right? And or like a stud wide receiver, or one of the Kent State guys. I think one of those guys would have been really, really nice to help out this offense. And so we'll see what the wide receiver room is. It's obviously talented. It's still deep. Like you got 7-8 guys that are all going to be they're all going to be playing. It's just about like consistency and then who can rise to the top and be that alpha in that room. And it's 3rd and 7, or it's even 1st and 10, and you throw a slant pass and he goes for 80 yards, like they've had in the past with some of these guys. But so we'll see.
Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.
Let's talk about Arkansas. Woo pig suey. Sam Pittman. Look, I mean, I'm a Texas A&M fan. There's a little rivalry there, but Sam Pittman's awesome. Okay, no one can hate Sam Pittman. Bows out, right? No one can hate Sam Pittman, right? The over win total this year is at 6.5. It was at 7.5 last year. Didn't quite reach that. Had some injury, unlucky in the injury department for sure last year, definitely. Some key losses that they have: Jalen Catalon, right, who's transferred over to Texas; Ricky Stromberg, who's in the NFL now; Drew Sanders, who's in the NFL; Bumper Pool. That's another guy that you lose there. Uh, Matt Landers, Jaden Hazelwood, at receivers. So this is actually, I think, is a larger number of turnover on that roster than I think you know, from what people would think. I believe, if people follow NFL drafts, only a couple of these guys are really were on people's draft boards. But look, the reality is you get KJ Jefferson back. That's the big one, right? And Rocket Sanders. The offensive line could be pretty good. Chris Paul's back. He's gonna have to take a big step, right, with Drew Sanders and Bumper Pool headed out of there. So and the schedule is not necessarily easy. But it is nice though that you draw Florida and Mizzou from the East, right? That is favorable, right? You do play a non-conference game against BYU. So over under win total at 6.5. Where are you headed?
I really want to take the over, just because I believe in this team. I think the schedule, while it's pretty tough, like we have it ranked 11th in the country, um, I think there's a lot of winnable games at home, especially I think the back half of the schedule. Maybe when you are a little bit banged up, it's pretty manageable. Right after Alabama in week 7, you get Mississippi State, who I know we're both high on, but like it's not like you're playing Alabama again. You get at Florida, you get Auburn, FIU, Missouri. I mean, those are all really winnable games. And even the out of conference, like BYU, like it's, it's not like last year where or the year before that where they've had really really brutal schedules out of conference wise. Hosting BYU is very winnable, and should be a win for sure at this point in Sam Pittman's career at Arkansas. It should be a win. Even KJ Jefferson, I think he's back, hopefully healthy. I mean, he's a difference maker. Obviously, I took him in our quarterbacks draft in the SEC. I think he's such a game wrecker. Everything he can do when he's healthy is just awesome. Him and Rocket Sanders in the backfield. But behind him, you even got Jacoby Criswell from UNC, a guy that competed with Drake May. And that battle was pretty damn close. So if that tells you what they thought of him at UNC in terms of almost keeping Drake May off the field, he seems like a pretty good backup quarterback for him. Yeah, offensive line, I like it. I do like it a lot. I mean, Ricky Stromberg's obviously a good player. They lost some other guys, but left tackle, right? It's very interesting. Devin Manuel, I think, is going to be him. He's like 6'9", 310. He lost 70 pounds since he got on campus. He's a guy that's going to step in and hopefully play pretty well. I don't know. I do like this team. Even the pass catchers there with you lose Matt Landers, right? You lose
Really?
Jaden Hazelwood. You lose Trey Knox. I don't know if you have the upper echelon guys like Traylon Burks, right? Like Matt Landers, like your NFL guys, but you got some interesting guys like Andrew Armstrong. I know from Texas A&M Commerce. Like I know Matthew wanted him pretty bad for A&M. A lot of these, and Isaac Tasala from D2, right? Tyrone Broden from Bowling Green. I mean, you got some smaller school guys, so obviously it's hit or miss. You don't know exactly what you're getting.
It's a big adjustment. It's a big adjustment.
Yeah, for sure, and especially early in the year. But you have till week 4, and you don't have to beat LSU to hit your over. It's really going to be week 5. You got to start getting with it. They got the part in the tight end from North Texas, right? Marquise Gooms or Goomis, whatever it was. Like he was awesome for them last year as a true freshman, and they got a backup behind him, coming in early and early that they're pretty high on as well. So I don't know. I'm not going to take the over just because it's tough schedule and it's the SEC and like injury, can kind of scare me away from this, but I do lean the over. I think this is going to be a good year for Arkansas and Sam Pittman.
When I look at this, so like when I think of like the strength, right, of what Arkansas has been these last couple of years, you think of run defense, right? That's what I think of. Okay. And when I look at a lot of these teams in the SEC West, well, and even Missouri, who they draw in the East. Well, maybe not
Florida,
so
I
much
think
Missouri.
Florida's going to try to run the ball.
Well, yeah, but what I'm trying to get at is that like the interior defensive lines in the SEC West are no joke.
Yeah,
They're no joke. So if they can't find a way to run the
yeah, I see what
ball,
you're
right,
saying.
and these pass catchers, they've played a lot of football, which is really good. That is really good, but it's a totally different level of ball game right there. And there's just better athletes in these secondaries, even if they're not, you see some guys ball. It's just a different level of athletes. So if they can't get cooking on offense, I don't see their defense getting better. I really don't. You lose two gigantic pieces at linebacker. Well, Bumper Pool maybe was just a production guy, but Drew Sanders was an unbelievable player to lose.
He was about
Everything, pass rusher, pass coverage, filling runs. I mean, he was ridiculous. And Jalen Catalon, I think we saw early on. Well, there were other pieces of that secondary that got hurt, so it still is going to improve, I think, in the secondary this year. But we saw how early on, right away when Jalen Catalon got hurt, it was so different in the secondary. And again, you're not going to have him again this year. I actually lean under here. And this is not a slight at Arkansas, actually, when I say this, okay, because I think the SEC West is that loaded this year. I actually have them finishing in last in the SEC West this year with a 6-6 record. But I also think that they could win 7 games if KJ Jefferson really gets off. I mean, they could win 8 games. Like, this is not crazy. I think winning 8 games is more likely than 5 games, if that makes sense. But
yes.
So yeah, but then again, I also think 6 wins is more likely than 7. Like, I don't see like the wheels falling off this team necessarily, but I do lean under here. But they also burned me last year when I took their over. So come on, Arkansas, let's figure it out.
Well, yeah, and also you have to remember, like, with the win totals in the SEC, and I think the ACC as well, are a little bit different because they do play only 8 conference games, which I know has been kind of, for whatever reason, is a topic of conversation. So when you do say 5 wins, like 5-7's not a terrible year, but it's not like a really good year. But like all you got to do is go 4-0 and out of conference, especially if you need an easy schedule, and then steal 1 game in the SEC. So it's not like 5-7 for like Purdue or for like Illinois is a lot different than 5-7 for Arkansas. That is just how I think about it. I do think they still have some talent though in the secondary. Or they bring a couple guys from Baylor who they like. Dwight McGlothern is
Yeah,
still there. I think
it'll get better than last year. It can't
yeah,
get any
because
worse.
it was bad. It was really bad. No, I think Drew Sanders, like you said. I mean, him and Harold Perkins. I think if Harold Perkins wasn't doing his thing and LSU wasn't great, like Drew Sanders would have gotten really, really national attention. And he started getting it in the NFL draft. But he was about as good as he could have been, coming over from Bama. And they don't have a guy behind him. Like, obviously, Chris Paul coming back. But still, I mean, he's going to be a guy they're going to miss. Without him, I couldn't imagine what that defense would have even looked like,
Yeah, I mean, I had him graded as a first-round player. He ended up going, the 3rd round, which is wild to
As a
me.
linebacker.
Hey,
But
it's
he
just
can
a
do it. He can
linebacker.
do more than just
But he
being an
could do
off-ball linebacker. He can rush the passer. He can put his hand in the dirt. I mean, the versatility he has. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, and he's a blue chip prospect, right? It's not like he just came out of nowhere, right? He has the
No,
size, the physicality. Like, dude, I did not understand why he slipped, and I am not an NFL GM. I'm not a scout, but gosh, if he ends up hitting, where did he go? Broncos somewhere. But if he ends up hitting the NFL, I'm just here to say, like, yeah, that I was here to tell you, yeah, obviously, right? He's insane, and
well, yeah, he was in that same class as Will Anderson. Like it was him, Will Anderson, and Chris Broswell were the big edges they brought in.
yeah,
And obviously, Will Anderson got all the attention, deservingly so. But like, it's not like he's a slouch. So yeah, they're gonna miss him for sure.
yeah. So they need Chris Paul to step up, and now Chris Paul's a good player, and he's played football, like he's played some good football. We need to take that step, right? And I don't normally say like linebacker is such an important position, but like on a team where it's like I'm not seeing like crazy high end talent anywhere else in this defense, you're gonna really need linebackers to step up and make big time plays, big time tackles, right? And blitz effectively. So yeah, I lean under, you lean over. Overall, excited for Sam Pittman. Let's go.
Yeah.
Auburn. This is an interesting team because we're talking about another one of those teams that big time roster flippage, right? Big time roster flippage at a lot of positions. Hugh Freeze, welcome back to the SEC. Welcome back. It was an interesting exit, but now you're back and it's okay. What I think is crazy about Auburn, is like it
Wait,
teams are
real quick. Sorry to interrupt you. Do you think he's
yeah.
gonna get booed in the SEC? Hugh Freeze,
You, I don't think so. I
like
think it's
at
been
opposing
long
stadium.
enough.
Like, will you boo him? Well, like, what? He's coming to A&M week 4, right? Are you gonna boo him?
No. I think Bama will boo him for sure. Because
Ole Miss is
Bama,
gonna boo him. Ole Miss for sure, but also he's
yeah,
got that game circled on his schedule. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I think that's I just was thinking about that.
yeah. I think it's been long enough. I don't know, and it's not like he did anything like I don't know. Like it's
Wow.
well, okay.
He
Let me
did
be
stuff
careful with
wrong for
no.
sure.
Yeah, let me be careful with my words, right? I think there's things that people make a bigger deal about, if that makes sense. I don't know.
Yeah,
What he did
it's
was
not like
wrong
he
and he should
left
not
them
have yeah.
for dead either. Like, it's not like he like decimated that whole program. I don't think. I mean, the hire was terrible. Whoever they brought in, I forget who it was after him was god awful. So that's why they're bad now. That's why it took them a while to get back to where they are. But yeah, this is the Auburn schedule segment. I'm sorry, but yeah,
Yeah, so this schedule is actually manageable compared to past years. So good job, Auburn. Look, it's very easy for this team to win over 6.5 games. I think they absolutely hauled in the transfer portal in a big way, like really
mm.
good names. Tank Bigsby, Derek Hall, Colby Wooden. Those are some guys that are gone. But guess what? They have dudes that they got from the transfer portal, right? Payton Thorne, he just started a lot of football games, right? And Hugh Freeze has done more with less, right? I mean, we saw Bo Wallace be a dog for Ole Miss. Come on. He beat Alabama. Okay. But then, like, the offensive line, which was so terrible these last couple of years. In fact, I don't think they've had an offensive lineman drafted in like the last 5 years. Avery Jones, that was a huge get. Everyone thought he was going to Illinois. They snag him. Gunnar Britton from Western Kentucky, I believe. Dylan Wade. I like those were good gets. Or was Gunnar Britton from Tulsa?
Gunnar
I'm
Britton's
forgetting.
Western Kentucky.
He's from Western
Jaden
Kentucky.
Muskrat's from Tulsa. He could play guard for him. Muskrat
Yeah,
can.
like they
They did a
actually
great
like
job in the O line. Like market, like we talk about like tough places to rebuild your team in the transfer portal. Right, you got pass rushers and then offensive line, especially
tough.
tackles, and they did that. They did that so
Yes,
well.
yes, which is a huge credit to Auburn. And this schedule I think is manageable. Of course, they always get Georgia like they do every year. Okay, but then the other team that they draw from the East is Vanderbilt. Another winnable game. They're out of conference is abysmal, right? So you get 4 games, 4-0, beat Bandy, that's 5. You're asking Hugh Freeze to win 2 games in the SEC West. And he gets both of the Mississippi schools at home. And look, Hugh Freeze has done a good job against Bama. And he gets him at home.
He, he
And
has,
weird
and
things happen in Jordan Hare.
yeah, no, I don't hate that. I'm taking the over. I like this team. I think Hugh Freeze is a guy I trust. I think the offense was horrid last year. It was gross to watch. It was honestly worse than A&M in terms of like actually watching. But I think at least they knew what they were doing. Like they actually believed in like let's run the ball. Like once Cadillac Williams came in, it was like okay, let's run the ball with Tank Bigsby. We got whatever else. Like Robbie Ashford's terrible to throwing the ball. Like he's hurt. Let's just run the ball. And I think this year you're gonna see it's going to be a night and day with Hugh Freeze and the talent they bring in. Peyton Thorne, say what you want about him, I think he's fine. The thing is the only problem is we talked about this with Arkansas with their pass catching units. Like you got some guys coming in from lower levels of competition coming to the SEC. It's not like we're down on him. Like Avery Jones is a good player, like from East Carolina. But is it gonna how long is it gonna adjust for him? The thing is they don't really have to be adjusted fully until maybe like week 8, and that's when you have like those are your like you have to win those games to hit the over if you're betting on them, right? If you're a fan, obviously you want to win every game, but like week 5 with Georgia, week 7 at LSU, you're not going to be too upset if you lose those games. At A&M early is, obviously you like to, but like going into Kyle Field and winning is obviously very hard, like um, so it will be interesting to see because you got like your offensive line, all guys from American, CUSA. It's not like you're taking them from D2, but like it's still going to be an adjustment. Also learning to play together. Rivaldo Fairweather, right at the tight end from FIU. He's another guy that's super interesting. And then Shane Hooks, a wide receiver, I guess he is from FCS. He's from Jackson State. Jair Shorter from North Texas. I mean, so you do have guys coming in from lower levels, but Hugh Freeze also coached right at that lower level with Liberty. He knows how to identify talent. He knows how to get the best out of those kind of players. So I think we're both pretty high on them. I'm taking the over. I feel pretty good about that.
Yeah, I was very close to taking this over. I will say that. But then I realized, wow, I am taking a lot of overs in the SEC West, if that is a preview to anything. So I was like, well, if there's one team that maybe I'm gonna pull back on, I think it's gonna be Auburn. But I I'm gonna be kicking myself when they do win 7 games or 8 games or whatever they end up winning. Defensively they were pretty bad last year, which Auburn fans you've taken for granted. Let me tell you, you've had some really good defenses the last like decade,
Yeah,
right? And
damn good.
and I think it could improve this year. I think it could improve. I'm not sure it's going to be a gigantic jump, right? But you do get some nice replacements on the defensive line, including interior defensive line. Talked about that earlier. Justin Rogers from Kentucky. Wow,
Yep.
is that kid really good or what? Right. They also like Jason Jones also there as well. In the interior, Lawrence Johnson's another transfer. Marcus Harris. They're okay with those guys. The edge I think is a little bit more interesting because you lose Derek Hall, right? Who was a big time pass rusher for you,
Yep.
and I think they're trying to replace in some guys in the transfer portal, but are they going to be able to get to the quarterback? I'm not sure. Which could be a problem. But um, the secondary was okay last year. It was fine. So reality is, like, if they get marginally better on defense, and I think offensively they'll improve a lot just with Hugh Freeze and adding a quarterback that can throw the ball. Um, I think this team makes gigantic jumps. And of course, the offensive line I think is good as well. So I applaud you for having the good enough to take it over 6.5. I think that's going to be a really good. I think it's going to be a payout for you. And again, Auburn normally has normally when you get Auburn at 6.5, it's because their schedule is whack, right? Normally it is whack, but it is way more manageable this year. They don't get Penn State in a non-conference game, right? At least their other Eastern team that they draw instead of Georgia, which they draw every year, right? Is
Vanderbilt.
Vanderbilt. At least that's
It's
okay.
about as good as you can do in with their schedule. 26 in the country in terms of difficulty is about the floor it's gonna be in terms of like how manageable it's gonna get, and it's not gonna get any easier with Texas and Oklahoma coming in next year. So yeah, I think it's interesting. I think depth kind of worries me with a team built with a ton of transfers, and then also like the unknown. It's not like you're rebuilding Colorado, right, with all these transfers, but it's still gonna be like, okay, like that's my worry is like, okay, well, how do these all fit? Like they're not all gonna hit. It's not gonna be all rainbows with them. But I think the combination of returning players, coaching staff, Ron Roberts comes in, I think, from Baylor at defense coordinator. I know they struggled last year, but historically, those past couple of years they've been really darn good on defense. So we'll see. There's talent in the second in this front seven, but we'll see what happens with depth, and then also like the transfers they bring in as well.
The Florida Gators. Let's talk about them. I got some poop earlier this offseason when I drafted some particular names over Billy Napier in our second year coaches draft. That was before, by the way, the recruiting explosion tear that he went on in the that month of June and July. Just know that it was more of like a, hey, I don't know how secure is his job realistically going into this year. But now with that recruiting class, it's I think a little bit more secure than it was before.
Yeah,
You
but
lose
the thing
Anthony.
is like those players aren't going to help this year, right? In terms of like this year, like those players aren't going to
Yep.
come in like they're in high school, right? Like I think momentum's one thing around the recruiting trail, but in terms of actually translating that into the field and with your coaching staff, like it still remains to be seen with this staff here.
Yeah, and look, you lose Anthony Richardson, top 5 draft pick. Cyrus Torrance was a second round draft pick. Probably could have been a first round draft pick. Ventrell Miller, you lose on the defensive side of the ball, along with Javon Dexter and some other names. Guys, you get. Guys, you get back. Also, Xavier Henderson's another loss. Guy transferred away to Cincinnati. Graham Mertz. Boy, oh boy. And it's crazy because And we do this every offseason with Graham Mertz.
Are we
Oh,
the
it's
ones that are
really
crazy? Or why are we the only ones in the room that's like why are we not like Graham Mertz like believers? Like are we wrong? Are we crazy to think that? Like
it's just like it's happened too many times where like the offseason's like, oh, Graham Mertz is making strides. The offense is clicking. Oh, we're gonna be Wisconsin. I guess they was we're gonna be throwing the ball more, which never happened. Granted, it could be like they didn't put him in a good situation over there at Wisconsin, but it
but
just felt like
okay. Sorry. I have to butt in here about Graham Mertz because as a Minnesota fan, right? I'm a student in Minnesota. Like I've seen Graham Mertz the past couple of years. Obviously, pretty close to the Wisconsin program with a lot of fans, nearby. But so it was just on Josh Pate show, right? Subscribe to Late Kick, Josh Pate. Give me that chalice of supremacy. But the what's the Paul Chris told Peyton was like, we grossly misused Mertz. Like I think he's going to be really successful in Florida. If you knew you grossly misused him, why wouldn't you change that? You had 4 years with him on campus, right? So like,
yeah.
why is that? Why after 4 years? Oh, we misused him. Now that I don't have a job there, now that I can't actually change anything about him, now that they're gonna figure it out. Like what? And I get it, and I get he's got the arm talent, a former high recruit. I mean, Wisconsin's not known for throwing the ball, obviously, but they've had elite offensive linemen, they've had elite running backs, they've had great tight end plays. This whole time he's been there, they've had serviceable wide receivers. What is the problem? If it's not Graham Mertz, who is to blame for his lack of success? Sorry.
Yeah, and well, this year, right? You mentioned like, oh, serviceable receivers, right? I mean, yeah, a couple. I mean, Quintez Cephas, he was a good receiver,
Yeah.
but I'm looking at pretty quote unquote serviceable receivers when I look at this Florida roster. Ricky Pearsall is actually pretty good. You lose Xavier
Mm-hmm.
Henderson, which is a big loss. Are the freshmen just going to get in and just play a bunch? Is that what's going to happen here? I mean, Caleb Douglas, I think he might get some time as well. He might start. Who knows? Jaquavian Frazier's might start as well. I don't know what this wide receiver room is going to look like for Florida, but all I know is that they've also lost a lot on the offensive line. Underrated, they had a fantastic offensive line last year. Very underrated.
Yeah. Yep.
Like very,
And
very, very
they're
underrated.
they're all gonna have a lot of success the next year, whether it's in another programs like USC. I think has a couple. One guy had to retire, which was tough. I think obviously Osiris Torrance in the NFL is gonna play well. So yeah, they're gonna miss those guys.
Yeah, and they will. Now, running back wise, you're loaded, right? Montrell Johnson and Trevor Etienne are both all SEC caliber running backs. Awesome. You did great there. Defensively, I don't know. Can you convince me that they're really good defensively?
I'll say the coaching should be better. I is it Austin Armstrong comes in from Southern Miss. I think is going to be the
Yeah.
defensive coordinator there. I I was really impressed with him. I know Saban liked him a ton. Um, at Bama there, but I don't know. I think they lose Gervin Dexter, which is tough. I think they lose their leader Ventrell Miller, which is tough. DBs, I think they kind of had to play a lot of young guys last year, and they kind of got their feet wet, right, in the SEC play, and they kind of got thrown in there. So obviously, hopefully, you have that year progression where the game starts slowing down for them. You got Jason Marshall, obviously former 5-star guy, really talented. Now is the time to put it all together for him, be an NFL guy next year. Devin Moore looks like he's going to be alongside him, another talented young guy at corner. Miguel Mitchell, who's a true freshman, again, last year, another young guy coming to play in at safety. Him and Kamar Wilson. And then they got a nice little a piece from Michigan, RJ Moten that can do a couple things in the secondary. Just seen a lot of football up there in the Big Ten. So we'll see. Depth issue in the defensive line is interesting. Cam Jackson came in, impressed. Tyrese Sapp, hopefully, taking the next step. But the front seven is where I have my issues in terms of high end quality starters, and then also that depth behind that first group.
Yeah, I lean under here. I didn't actually take the under. I would have felt better about taking the under if I knew Cam Rising status for week 1, but this is honestly, I mean, this team actually, it's more talented, I think, than people actually think. I know we're giving it a hard time. I think it's actually more talented than people think, but If I were to take the under, it is strictly a Graham Mertz Fadatron. All right, that's strictly what it is, and it's business. I'm sorry, Graham Mertz. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and it's not like
I
behind him is much better. It's not like you like, oh well, if he doesn't play well, like they have a true freshman that can come in and play. No, Jaden Rashad is gone. He's over at Arizona State. Like Jack Miller is not the guy. We've seen that before. Max Brown is he the guy? I don't know. I don't think he's ready yet. But yeah, I don't know. I don't trust that room. Yeah, sorry.
are you leaning under as well?
Yeah, I'm leaning the under. Just the schedule at Utah tough. Even without Cam Rising, I think we already did our Utah breakdown. So go watch that if you're a Florida fan and want to know about. But Utah, we love the O line. I think the O line is awesome there. So I think without Cam Rising, you can just run the ball with that good running back that you got coming back, and without Gervin Dexter in the middle, and like lose Ventrell Miller in the front seven. I think it's gonna be pretty tough to go into Utah and get a win there. And then all of a sudden now you're playing catch up, and now you got to steal a game from a team in the SEC that's pretty tough, and you get Florida State on the back end of that too. So like their schedule brutal. Like we second in the country is difficulty. Like it's no slouch, you know.
The Georgia Bulldogs are a very good football team this year, and their over win total reflects that greatly. Also, they are the beneficiary of I'm not going to call it a cakewalk schedule, but relative to like maybe what other SEC schedules are, the fact that it's the 44th now, those strength of schedule ratings are based on the average power rating of your opponent, right? And where does that fall? The average rating of their power opponent or power rating of their opponent is 28.2, which is actually like pretty solid. But in terms of the SEC, having only a 44th ranked schedule that is last in the SEC, that is in terms of for how talented this team is, that should be a cakewalk. And you can
Well,
take the over 11.5 at plus money, but are you gonna really bet on a team to go undefeated? Just bet to win the SEC championship.
I know that's what, or even national champ. Like that's why, like I had with Bama, I'm gonna take them to win a national championship, not because like the 10.5 I think is too rich for me. Even though I believe in them a ton, I think the value there is to go, go big or go home, especially with your futures, or with in this case, yeah. So their schedule, let's call it what it is. It's a cupcake schedule, right? For Georgia standards, like it is. There's nobody on this team that should beat them, right? They have to go to Tennessee. That's tough. I am hesitant to take it, and I'm not even as high on Tennessee as some other people are. At Florida, well, I guess it's a neutral site there, but they're technically the road team there. It's going to be in Florida. At Auburn is not easy. But again, this is a rebuilding year with Auburn, and I'm high on them. I took their over. I don't know. I want to take the over so bad because I don't think they're really going to fall off that much. I think complacency is something they can definitely set in. That's something you can't really quantify, and that I have no idea. Like if I sit here and tell you, like, oh yeah, this team's, that they're gonna lose a bunch of games because they're getting complacent. Like I have no intel on that. Nobody. I don't even think Kirby Smart knows that. With how his team's gonna respond this year. But I think that they have the talent everywhere to do it. I mean, they're like obviously they lost Stetson Bennett, and a Heisman guy, Jalen Carter, going to be a stud in the NFL. Nolan Smith, first round pick, Darnell Washington, stud. Like they lost a lot of these guys, Keely Ringo in the NFL, but they have no question marks on the team. Carson Beck, I think we both totally believe in. Offensive line, feel pretty damn good about with Cedric Van Pran coming back and Marius Mims on the right side. Obviously, Brock Bowers is going to be in there for the tight end room, so you're not really worried about that at all. And even if he gets hurt, there's still guys behind them. Injury depth at running back position is definitely something to keep an eye on. Now, they don't need it early, right? Those guys can get healthy and really, as long as they're back again for week 12 and playing Tennessee, that's all they really need. And even if they do lose to Tennessee in a close one, if Tennessee is good enough to beat them and to run the table in the SEC, otherwise like Georgia can still make the national championship. I think with how productive they've been the past couple of years, I don't think they don't have to win the SEC to make it in the championship. But yeah, I don't know. I know you're pretty high on Carson Beck. How come you're high on Carson Beck?
I mean, we've seen him play before. I mean, like, and he's done well. He's gonna have a ridiculous offensive line. He's gonna have better receivers than Stetson Bennett ever had. He's got the size. He's got the arm talent. I mean, how do you not? How are you not supposed to like this kid? And there was a three-way quarterback battle, right? I mean, really two, but there's a three-way quarterback battle, and he came out on top. And I think it was gonna be like that from the start. He looked awesome in spring. He's been looking good in fall so far, from what I hear.
Yeah.
He's also got the best tight end in the country, like maybe like the best tight end to come out. Well, Kyle Pitts maybe is up there in terms of prospects. Well, not maybe, he is up there in terms of
Yeah.
prospects, pure prospect standard. But this defense is also insane. There's no holes on this team. There's none. When you have zero holes on a team and you play a schedule like this, I mean, yeah, maybe you could see like a slip up somewhere, maybe like at Auburn early, or I don't know, at I guess I don't know. Like, I feel
Ole
like they
Miss
match
maybe
up.
gets hot and like something happens
Yeah,
with
but you get
Jackson
him,
Dart.
but you get him at home, right? It's
Yeah.
like I could see like Tennessee. People are like, oh, well, they're playing at Tennessee. It's like I don't think they match up very well against, or I don't think Tennessee matches up very well
Yeah.
against Georgia. I'm gonna be honest there. We saw it
Now the
last
only
year.
thing is that's where you need your running backs to be healthy because that's where you'd love like they did last year to just pound the ball, keep it out of Joe Milton's hands. And but if they don't have the running back depth there, if by week 12 they're even more banged up than they are right now, that's definitely something for concern. But obviously you can't predict the future, with injury history, with injury luck. But it's something to keep an eye on for sure. If you're getting to week 12 and it's like, well, Georgia's got no running back, it's like what's going to happen there?
Yeah. So once again, this is gonna be, I think, likely. I think this can be a top five offense, and I think this can be a top five defense, and that leads me to lean to the over, right? But I can't actually physically take over 11.5. That's just ridiculous. Even though I am the guy that took Stanford under 2.5, right? But I can't do that, right? But I can't I I just don't see any losses on this schedule, so I can't take the under either. It's like it's ridiculous. It's crazy.
Have they've hit the over? They've been 12-0 the past two seasons, haven't they? In the
Yes,
regular season,
yes,
like
yes. So it's like, and this team, well, maybe it's not better than that 2021 team, but this team's better than last year's team. It is. And maybe like Georgia in hindsight, maybe like Ohio State probably should have was probably the best team in the country last year. Hindsight, if you really look at it. But then again, they won the national championship by 56, so or 58 or whatever it was.
yeah.
So
No, I think we
you
can't do
can't
a
say that
Georgia
they,
segment.
yeah.
There you go.
No, no, it's all
We
good.
can't do a Georgia segment without talking about Jamon Dumas Johnson. I don't know if you hit on him already, but him at linebacker,
I haven't.
somehow they still have crazy talent at linebacker after year. Um, Getting decimated by, well, I
Yeah.
guess they're all back this year, but 2 years ago they lost like three of them in the top 4 rounds. Um, they're all back, and they still have Raylan Wilson, CJ Allen, two freshmen that they love up behind them. Obviously Small Munden or Smell Munden's back. Damn good duo right in the thing. The only interesting part is at interior defensive line. You do lose Jalen Carter, right? He's gone. You do lose Bear Alexander, which I know character issues, and he didn't necessarily fit with the Georgia coaching staff. It sounds like there. But that's another year after losing two other first rounders the year prior to that. Like, how ready are those the guys like Christian Miller, even Jordan Hall as true freshman, to come in and fill? How confident are you in that? I know we're getting nitpicky, but in terms of like a team like Georgia, like we're gonna break them down differently than a team like Arkansas, where it's like you had definitely have questions in certain spots. Georgia, like I'm getting nitpicky here, but like how worried are you about the interior defensive line to be star studded like it has been in the past?
I'm not worried. There's a drop off from Jalen Carter, sure, and there's also a drop off from Jordan Davis, sure, but it's talented. It's really really talented. And what also I think makes this team special is like this secondary as well. Malachi Starks, Shimon Bolin. I mean, I
Mari
think
Lassiter,
I mean, what are we talking about? So it's like I think interior wise, right? Their linebackers are good enough where they can also assist in the run game as well. Like they'll be a really good run defense. Last year they obviously were, and a lot of that had to do with Jalen Carter, but and Nolan Smith was also a good run defender too for his frame. But I think this pass defense is, I think it's going to get a lot better than it was last year. So I'm not so worried about pass rush, but also like Michael Williams is also he's good. He's also a good player. That's a true sophomore. So This team is crazy. This team is loaded. They're ready to go. They're everyone's pick to win the SEC East. I mean, if you have a dark horse to win the SEC, right, you can't pick it from the East because there's just no way that they're gonna. There's just no way that it's not gonna
No.
be Georgia coming out of the East. It's like who can catch Georgia's lacking in the West when they come, and really they're only like challenging games at Tennessee, right? Like, so it's like, are they going to be
But
battle tested? That's the question. Oh, is this team going to be battle tested before they get to the SEC championship? That's the question that people are asking. Not like,
well, it
where are the holes? What about this game? Are they going to get caught slipping? No, it's like when they get there, like, are they going to have been battle tested or whatever?
well, I think that's a good point, and I'm definitely like worried about that in terms of like in-game battle tested. But like you got to remember, they've been going, elite on elite for 6 months in the offseason right now, 7-8 months, like since January, or like really since February, right? In terms of like working out, but also spring practice, fall camp. So they're going to be battle tested in terms of like they know what good competition looks like, right? They see it every day in practice. And it does help that they don't have, too physical a schedule because they could be hopefully pretty healthy when it comes into just November and especially into December, obviously, in early January for them. They do reach all their goals. Yeah, that I also just trust Kirby Smart, like with my like everything, like, oh, interior defense line, maybe I don't feel great about, but I believe he's recruited well. Obviously, Glenn Schumann and Will Muschamp are two damn good coordinators, along with Kirby Smart there. So like, I'm just not
Low
worried at
key,
all.
just Scott Cochran is also still there, just a maniac. So this
Oh,
team is
how worried?
special.
Real quick about coaching though. How worried are you about losing Todd Monken? Mike Bobo comes in. I think he's in-house hire, right? If that's
Yeah,
true, but like,
well, he's been there before, right? He was there with Aaron Murray, I believe. But
oh yeah, okay, yeah, yeah.
well, like, I'm not that worried about it. I think Todd Monken is fantastic. I think he's gonna do a great job at the Ravens. But I'm not that. Look at like he's gonna have a lot of time to figure it out. You know, does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh yeah, and I think the ceiling, I think with the talent he has there is higher than it was last year, even with Stetson Bennett, and the numbers he put up was actually really, really impressive. I think, like we talked about, I think the wide receiver room has higher talent. I think obviously Brock Bowers comes back. You feel good about your offensive line. I think Carson Beck is a bigger and stronger dude than Stetson Bennett, and he can still move around. He still has like, nice legs to him. Not that he's going to be better than Bennett. I think the upside in terms of like certain games, like they can go toe to toe with anybody offensively, and they also have the defense to back it up, which is why I think it's hard not to feel good about this Georgia team. And
Yeah. And everyone talks about like Carson Beck is like a dark horse to win the Heisman. In my brain, like right now, like when I think about the people that are going to be in New York, like he's at New York. In my head, he's in New York. Like that's how high I am on Carson Beck.
real
This is going
question,
to be a
and
good team.
I know you can't really know this, and nobody does, and I haven't really seen this out there, but if they start getting more and more injury at running back, what are the chances Brock Bowers gets thrown back there and he gets 15
It's
touches a
it's
game?
it's not zero,
He's
and
a
he could
guy that
do
can
it,
do it, and he
and he
could
could
do it.
do it. That would be
I'm just
awesome.
I'm just fangirling over Brock Bowers. He is so fun to watch. Just the way
Yeah,
his shoulders are just like this, and he just runs. Oh,
yeah.
go
But
dogs!
go Dogs. The point being, this is a good football team.
Yeah.
Kentucky. Whoa. I think Mark Stoops is. I don't think. I mean, I know for a fact he has increased the expectations of this program by a lot. And the issue with that is you lose an NFL quarterback in Will Levis. You lose Chris Rodriguez, who's also an NFL running back, Carrington Valentine. But and you lost some guys on the offensive line, but also your offensive line wasn't all that great last year. So
It was horrible. Oh my
yeah.
god, it was terrible.
But you also lose Justin Rogers too, as well, to Auburn,
Yes.
who's a nose tackle monster, right? Probably should have added him to this list. No, Carrington Valentine's pretty good too. But guys that they get, right? They get Devin Leary from NC State, which is a really good get.
Is that an upgrade from Will Levis? I don't know. I don't know if in terms of just like comparing quarterback, I think Devin Leary is
no,
going to look better than Will
yeah,
Levis. I think he's absolutely going to look better. And it's
yeah,
not Will Levis' fault. I think it's just the reality of the situation there at Kentucky.
yeah. So people talking about like I've heard people talk about, oh, it's an upgrade. What? Okay, let's be real. Okay, let's be real. Okay, it's not an upgrade, but of all the other things, like the other, like Auburn was scrambling to find a quarterback. Bama. What would Bama do right now to have Devin Leary on their team? Anything.
Yeah.
They would do anything. So this is a great get. So I'm not knocking this at all. This is a great get. They also got pretty solid talent there at on the edge. Barry Brown, one of the fastest players in the entire country. Kentucky fans know that. They love this guy. All I hear about is Barry Brown. Whenever I see like on Twitter, like, oh, who are the fastest players in college football? It is like 25 Kentucky players or Kentucky fans just Barry Brown, Barry Brown, Barry Brown, Barry Brown. Yeah, he's really good. So I like him a lot. Deion Walker is also very good. D tackle. I know you really like him a lot. JJ Weaver at edge, pretty solid. Um, with that being said, the over unders at 6.5 this year. With a pretty tough schedule because you draw Bama from the
Yeah.
West. Um, what are your expectations? And at Mississippi State, by the way. So, what are your expectations for this team? Over under 6.5 wins.
The thing is this team feels like 7-5, like easy, like 8-4, and even like I think the upside is there for 9-3, and even obviously 10-2 is there if you lose to Bama and Georgia and beat everybody else, because everybody else is beatable. Like, don't get me wrong, Tennessee, they get at home, right? They got to go to Louisville, but and again, Louisville is going to be pretty good and they're going to win a lot of games, but that's absolutely a winnable game. To South Carolina is a game I look like that definitely scares me. I want to take the over, and I do. I'm not gonna. I definitely lean it, and I'm gonna kick myself when it hits. Is the problem is I think with taking the over, I think the floor of this team scares me with the offensive line, and I know they played well. They won 7 games with terrible O line last year, but their defense was damn good with a bad O line, and yeah, it kind of scares me with what they have to do. I think Devin Leary kind of fits is going to help. I think because he's so accurate, he doesn't make mistakes. He's going to be able to like find these receivers and hopefully quick hitters, so the offensive line doesn't have to hold up as well as with Will Levis's strong arm. You want to take advantage of that with play action pass and deep shots. But behind him, I mean, you saw the bowl game. I mean, they're not very good, So again, that's why it scares me to take the over, to put money on it. But I think if you're a Kentucky fan, you got to feel really good about this team, especially best case scenario of what can happen with Mark Stoops. I think last year definitely underperformed. I think everyone bought into Kentucky last year with all the talent they brought back with Will Levis, but nobody really everyone ignored the offensive line issues, and it hit them hard. But yeah, what say you?
Well, what did they do to fix the offensive line?
4 transfers, looks like a bunch of them.
Yeah, I mean, are they going to start? I don't know. I don't know.
Well,
I
Marquez Cox up front from NIU is pretty damn good, and they're gonna move the left tackle, Kenneth Horsey, back into left guard where he was all SEC guard. He's not a tackle by any means, especially not in the SEC when you got to go against some damn good edge rushers there. But I think that helps a little bit, but depth again, like
yeah,
it's not
yeah,
there, which is why I'm not taking the over. So yeah, you go for it.
yeah. And I'm a push at 6.5, so I don't lean over and I don't lean under. But I know I can't take the over with this offensive line depth at all. I
Yep.
mean, what you have like you have between like guards and centers, like interior offensive linemen, you have 3 people that could maybe like back up and play that position. 4 or 5 maybe, but like not well at all. So
No, if
interior
they're worse
offensive
than the
line,
starters, how good they're gonna be pretty damn bad.
yeah. So the thing that saves me though is the defense is really awesome. I think it's gonna be good again, and like people don't know like a lot of these names, right? Josiah Hayes, Deion Walker, JJ Weaver, Trevor Wallace, but these are good players. These are good players. So I'm in the schedule. Honestly, I do think it's really tough. I think out of conference is not bad at all. They should go 3-1. I think Louisville. I think they lose that game again. You and I are both high on Louisville, and they go to
Yeah.
Louisville. So the problem is like a game like South Carolina is really winnable. That they get that on the road, right? Vanderbilt, they look to get that on the road. That could be an interesting game, potential slip up spot, especially after you've
Yeah.
played 3 cakewalk games. And kind of look ahead to Florida because I mean that's kind of Kentucky's Super Bowl. Well, Louisville, but like Kentucky,
They want to beat
that
Florida this year again.
they want to be Florida again this year. So, um, and then I think the West teams that you drop, Mississippi State and Alabama, those are two of some of, in my opinion, the worst teams that you can get, especially if you're playing Mississippi State on the road.
Exactly. And if you're a Kentucky fan, you'd almost rather just, give me Alabama on the road. I'm going to lose it anyways. And let me have a chance against Mississippi State at home where I feel a lot
Yes.
better than going into Starkville.
Yeah. So I think the schedule for me, I can't take the over, and but I'm not gonna take the under because it's defense. So I don't lean either direction. But definitely like this could be an exciting year for Kentucky fans. It is cool though. Like Devin Leary was a big time transfer quarterback, and the fact that they were able to go out and get him, right? It's pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome, right? And then you get Ray Davis, right? Like another transfer running back that was pretty good from Vanderbilt. Um, one of Devin Leary's running backs transfers from NC State. Um, like it feels like that this is becoming a little bit. If you're landing big time transfers like that, it feels like you might be doing something right. So I think Mark Stoops once again has raised the floor of this program, and the fact that the over unders at 6.5 is a credit to Mark Stoops and that program. But I'm gonna push. I'm not gonna take it either way.
I think real quick a guy to note behind Dion or actually alongside Dion Walker on defensive line is Keyshawn Silver. And if you're a North Carolina fan, you know that name because you're gonna cringe because he's another 5-star guy, really uber talented defensive lineman that did not live up to the billing at UNC. And it sounds like obviously Mark Stoops and staff there is pretty good at developing, defensive line, especially on the interior. Keyshawn Silver sounds like he's been playing pretty darn good. And if they can unlock even a little bit of that potential there, him and Deion Walker could be a force up the middle.
I agree. I agree 100%. So Kentucky, we like you a lot. All right, we're high on you in some ways. So good luck to you guys. I'll be rooting for Kentucky for sure.
Absolutely.
LSU. Go Tigers. Go Tigers. Go Tigers. All right, what are we talking about here? This is a really good team. The over-under's at 9.5. I'm straight up say it. Give me the over. Bang. Come on. Let's go. Well, kind of. I mean, look, as an A&M fan, I don't love that LSU is as talented as they are, but I'm here to make money on this show. So that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be taking LSU. Sure, they lose BJ Ojulari, Jacqueline Roy, Jay Ward. Those are all defensive players. Those are all pretty good players. And defensively, they weren't terrible last year. Is that okay to say? Like, they weren't terrible, right? I mean, there were definitely some weaknesses on that team, but offensively, they don't really lose anyone. They lose Keyshawn Boutte, but guess what? I mean, come on, that's not a loss. Locker room,
That room is still loaded too. Oof.
Yeah, the room is loaded. Also, too, like what I like, and I say this often, right, is like at quarterback, right? Jaden Daniels is a good quarterback. I'm gonna take an over, right? Now I do have some exceptions, including some later today. I traditionally like if there's a backup quarterback that I know can also win ball games. And I think Garrett Nussmeier could also win 10 ball games for LSU along with Jaden Daniels. So I'm a big fan of this team. I mean, they're young, but in some certain spots, right? I mean, Emory Jones and Will Campbell are true sophomores, but they've both played a lot of snaps in the SEC at tackle, right? And their offensive line is gonna be really good. Another reason I'm high on them. I think at running back, they upgrade a little bit there. I know you've talked about Noah Kane being there. I mean, we'll see if he gets a lot of playing time. But Josh Williams, Logan Diggs, I mean, that's a solid running back room, right? But the receivers are really good, man. Malik Neighbors, awesome. Might be one of the best wide receivers in the SEC this year. Uh, Aaron Anderson, former 5-star from Alabama, absolute speedster. They can unlock his potential. I mean, that's awesome. How about LSU fans know this guy, Chris Hilton? What does that name do to you, LSU fans? Well, I'll tell you what it does to me. He's healthy. He's giant. He's a monster. Uh, if he actually can find his groove, like that is a dude that I would definitely watch out for this year. And he maybe doesn't start week 1, but he will get playing time. And I think that's one of like the sleeper guys for me in that wide receiver room. It's not a sleeper. I think LSU fans are very aware that Chris Hilton is pretty talented, but I don't know. But that's just the offensive side of the ball. Defensively, a lot of transfers. They might be relying a little bit too much on the transfer portal, right? But I think the defensive line is fine. Makai Wingo, Jordan Jefferson. But guess what? Guess who's back? Well, not week 1, but guess who's back? Mason Smith, right? Now, people are saying, like, is he fully healthy? I really hope so. I really hope so for the purposes of taking the over 9.5. But if he's there, I think like defensive line wise, I think they're fine. They knew that was going to be a weak spot, and they went in the transfer portal and they got a bunch of guys. So I think they have guys there. Omar Spates at linebacker is a very, 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 very good football player. He's played a lot of football in the Pac-12, and LSU people have been saying at camps that he's been awesome. But you can't talk about linebackers without talking about Harold Perkins Jr. Probably the best defensive player in college football going into this year. If you were to have to put a pen and paper in my hands and rank guys, he's
Well, especially in
unbelievable.
terms of impact, in terms of like what you can do in 3 levels of the game, like
Yep.
drop back in coverage, defend the run, rush the passer. He could do all 3 of them at an exceptionally high level.
He's Michael Parsons. I mean, like that's his comp, right? And we know what Michael Parsons does in the NFL. We know what he did at Penn State. I mean, he can do everything. And I think, right? Well, I'm pretty confident that Matt House knows what he's doing. I'm actually very confident that he knows what he's doing. I think he knows how to use Harold Perkins really well because he did last year. So I think the biggest question comes to me in the secondary, right? A lot of transfers there. And some of them, well, and also some good true freshmen that maybe like are going to be seeing some time. But um, Deuce Chestnut, who's a guy that comes from what, D2, D3?
Dude, just as the Syracuse guy, right? Zai,
Oh
Zai,
yeah, yeah,
Zai Alexander is the FCS guy from Southeast Louisiana. So not far
correct.
from LSU, but
Yeah. So, but I'm pretty high on both of those guys, and as well as Denver Harris, who might not even start for them. But if Denver Harris is your depth piece, now he might be struggling to learn the playbook a little bit, but I think if he's your depth piece, that's crazy. That's crazy to me. But he'll find a way to get on the field. And Javian Toviano, who's a true freshman, who I thought was coming to A&M. Texas fans thought was going to Texas, goes to LSU. I think as a true freshman, he could make an impact for sure. He's really, really good. So I just think that this team's kind of like loaded everywhere. The depth concerns you at some spots, but I don't see any holes on this team. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I wouldn't say holes, especially at the the starting level. I think the first 22 players on this team are really good, and I think they stack up with just about everybody else in the SEC. Minus maybe Georgia, but and even out. I know they're pretty talented. I'll give them that. I think Jaden Daniels with his ability to run and throw the ball, I think is a nice impact. I think pushing the ball downfield, I still have questions and concerns about that. Taking advantage of this elite wide receiver core, and among other reasons, I'm actually going to take the under here. This is the first time we both disagree in terms of
Wow.
like a play of like, okay, like you're taking the over, you're putting up with money. I'm putting up money with the under. Um, I think last year, I don't want to say that they got lucky because they won the SEC West, and obviously you need luck to do that every year. But I think they really easily could have been 8-4 and 7-5 in the regular season last year. It didn't really feel like an SEC West champ. I think Georgia, I know, was super excited when it was them versus Bama. Um, I see the room for improvement. I absolutely do. I still think like I put this team as an 8-4, 7-5 team last year, and I think they could improve and they can get to 9-3. And I think this year's schedule it's pretty damn hard. I think FSU, right? It's in Florida this year, right? That's not going to be easy at all. Yes, it's not on Florida State's campus, but it's still going to be, feel like more of a neutral site to away game. Army in the middle of the year, like what is that? That's awesome, by the way, for LSU to do that, but that's not going to be easy. Not that they're going to lose that game, but in terms of just like getting physically beat up after playing, 7 really tough games. Not really tough, but like physical games against Arkansas and Florida State,
Yeah.
even Mississippi
Even
State,
though,
Auburn.
because Navy totally beat up Notre Dame this past weekend.
Well, it's not easy. It's just annoying. It's annoying to have to prep all week for the triple option and then just forget everything and then go into your bye week and play Bama. Um, I don't know. I don't love the dynamics of the schedule. I think, Florida and Missouri are crossovers are about as good as you could do,
You
right?
don't like the
Absolutely.
bye. You don't like the bye before Bama
I do, but I do, but I
and
think
getting A&M at home.
yeah, but I think we both know by week 12, week 13, A&M is going to be playing pretty damn good
How
football.
about
Hopefully.
how about getting Missouri and Florida from the East?
No, and it's not that I don't. Yeah, well, yeah. Like I said, I think that's about as good as you could have done. Being LSU, I think. I just don't see this as an elite roster in terms of like. I just expect him to win all these games. I think there's going to be a lot of slip ups, especially with Florida State. I think that game really scares me. I think at Ole Miss, even at Missouri, I think I think they're gonna. I think they're gonna lose to Bama. They're gonna go to Bama. And in terms of having to go perfect the rest of the way, or like what 2 more losses, I don't. I think 9-3 is what they're going to be at. I don't know. I think I like the defensive line. I like Mickey Wingo, obviously Mason Smith, both guys that are really good. Behind them, I feel like they're kind of stitched together. On that second line, I think the freshmen they got to rely on them in the offensive line. I don't. I think defensively in the secondary, especially, it's going to be freshmen and transfers and guys that you don't really believe in. You don't know exactly what you're going to get. Obviously, linebacker Amar Schmitz and Harold Perkins, you like for sure. You feel pretty good about, but even behind them, like who's it going to be? Like I don't know. I think there's a lot of room for concern. I think a lot of people are just overlooking like what actually can go, what if something goes wrong, like when something goes wrong for LSU. I think it can go pretty wrong. I don't know. I think they got lucky last year. I'm gonna say like I don't know.
I
I
mean,
see 9-3.
I'm looking at this roster and I see 4 first-round draft picks.
Well, it just this year alone, or not even this year alone. I think like Garrett Nussbaum you could throw in there. I think eventually he's gonna be a top pick in the draft. Obviously, you got the young guys, Campbell, Jones, um,
Malik
Mason Smith,
Neighbors, Harold Perkins,
Harold Perkins, but
Mason Smith.
again, it scared me. Even the running back room, we touched on it earlier, and obviously running back is not a premier position, but it's definitely important with the way they're going to want to run the ball with Jaden Daniels there. I don't love the room. I really don't. I think John Emery, kind of still disappointed from him. Josh Williams is fine. Logan Diggs is serviceable from Notre Dame. I don't know. I think I just have too many questions about depth, about but just everyone expects them to just get dramatically better, and I just don't see that
Yeah.
with this team here.
Is Noah Kane playing this year?
I don't know. He should be. I don't know what happened if there's injury wise or something like that. He should be all good, healthy to go.
Yeah. I remember you talking about him a while ago. You said that he could be a sleeper guy for us, but
Well, I've liked
I,
him.
I, I say us, but
Well, I like him. Again, I think he could be a sleeper. I think he's a guy that if he hits his potential, obviously him and John Manor, there's a ton of potential in the room. Just I don't know. I don't know. The more and more I think about LSU, the more and more I dig into it. I was expecting to love this team. I was expecting to pick them to win the West, and then I got into it and looked at the roster and the schedule, and even last year, what happened? Like what actually what did it take for them to get? They were what 9-3, right? What did it actually take for them to get 9-3? And a lot happened, and they got blown out by Tennessee, and they got LSU A&M dominated them from the jump. Like FSU, they should have beaten FSU, obviously, but I don't know. I don't know.
agree to disagree.
I agree. Yeah, that's okay.
Mississippi State, the Bulldogs. Rest in peace, Mike Leach. You're my favorite coach in all of college football history. You're the best. But introducing Zach Arnett, who I think is the right guy for the job. And I did not see a lot of players transfer after the passing of Mike Leach either, which tells me something as well. That I think these players are bought in. I think Zach Arnett's a good coach. They have a lot of seniors. They return not just seniors, but talent. They're loaded on both sides of the offensive and defensive line. Give me the over 6.5. I'm gonna
Wow.
ride it just like I did last year, and it was the easiest bet. It cashed so easily last year, and I talked about it all the time. And I like this again. I think it's a bit of a tougher schedule this year, but come on. From the East, you get South Carolina and Kentucky. That's doable. That's doable. Out of conference, Arizona is a potential slip-up game, but I like the fact that they get it at home this year.
Yep.
So I'm gonna have Mississippi State. I don't think I'm the only person, but like I also think that like for some reason, a lot of people do not have Mississippi State. They have a lot of people have them finishing last, and that is reflected in Vegas odds as well, finishing last in the SEC West. And I do not think that is the case at all. That is not the case at all. Offensive line, they lost with their center, LaQuiston Sharp, but you know what? Guess what?
Should still be a good team, a good unit.
Yeah, Cole Smith has played center. He's played snaps. It's not like they're losing experience. I mean, Emmanuel Forbes was awesome. The rest of the secondary was a little bit decimated in terms of like, yeah, you're not going to be returning as much talent as you had last year back there, but I think they can still be fine. I mean, DeCameron Richardson is good. We know that he's good. I mean, the rest of the pieces, yeah, you're going to kind of be learning on the fly a little bit, and that is tough because week 2, it feels like got to win that game against Arizona if this over is going to hit, and that's not a team you want to be testing your secondary against either. But defensive line's 5. What, they lost like 6 guys? I don't care. They're still good. The interior defensive line is good. And I mean, edge might be a concern, but Zach Arnett has always found ways to put pressure on the quarterback. And that 3-3-5, he's blitzing linebackers. He's doing everything he can. He's always found a way. So I'm a big fan. Big fan of this team. And once again, the philosophy change for Will Rogers. Yes, it's going to be a philosophy change in the sense, but they're going to run the ball more, right? You could see that they ran the ball, I mean, a clip like of the least amount of time in the entire country, right? And they also passed more than anyone in the entire country last year. That's going to change. And I think that could help Will Rogers. I think you just have a lot of the same concepts. They don't want to complicate things for him, but he can do it, man. He's about to break every like SEC passing record ever. And it's going to be like a trivia question like 20 years from now when people forget who Will Rogers is. Like, who's your all-time passing leader in the SEC? Who's your all-time touchdowns leader? Like, this guy is a dog, and I'm a big fan of him. Big fan of him. And also, like, Marks in the backfield. Like, I think he's a true ball carrier, and I think they like him a lot. And, like, wide receiver, they're really underrated. Griffin, we know he's explosive, and I think Bulldog fans, correct me if I'm wrong, but they played him a lot on the outside, and that's just not who he is. He's a little bit smaller, and he's explosive, which equals probably more of a slot guy. And that's exactly what's going to be going on. But Xavier Thomas, Jaden Walley, Justin Robinson, they're good players. I have no problem with this receiving core at all. So they return a lot of guys. They're going to be probably better at receiver. They still got their quarterback, who's a dog. Still got Zach Arnett. And also, Zach Arnett's not going to be calling the plays this year, which is interesting, which I like in a sense because Matt Brock actually called the plays against Illinois last year or in the bowl game. And that was like probably their best defensive performance all year. You know, granted, it was the Mike Leach game, right? But gosh, I love that. And they get the Egg Bowl at home. What are we talking about, dude? Give me this over. I'm asking Mississippi State what to win if they beat Arizona, right? And out of conference and they go 4-0. That's an if, right? I'm asking them to win what, 3 games in the SEC?
3 and
3 games
5.
in the SEC. Just give me 3 and 5 in the SEC. That's all you need to do for me, Bulldogs. I rode you last year. Not just in the over-under, but I rode you guys. And it was awesome. You guys were great to me. Except, of course, you guys beat Texas A&M. But I did have money in you guys that game. So, well, an eye for an eye, shall we say. But I'm really high on this team. So, Sorry, I just took over there. What do you think?
No, I'm glad. You kind of took everything I wanted to say. The only difference we have here is I am scared to take the over. I am a little bit more concerned about the wholesale shift in philosophy schematically in terms of offensive defensive complementary football. Kevin Barbet comes over from Appalachian State to be the offense coordinator. It'll be similar concepts for Will Rogers. That's why I'm not worried about him at all. I'm worried about everybody else and being able to run the ball a bunch. Obviously, Jaquavion Marks, they're super high on. I think he's going to be a guy that's going to get a lot of national attention, deservingly so. Wide receiver core, they did lose a lot. I still like the group. I think there's fine pieces. Tight end, they don't have any tight ends. I mean, they had to bring transfers in, because they didn't play tight ends under Mike Leach, obviously. But again, offensive line, like it's gonna be a scheme adjustment. Like it still should be good. Just because they were good last year with Mike Leach doesn't mean like I'm a big believer in scheme does help your offensive lineman, and so hopefully they can get caught up by then. And I think that I'm not too worried. That's why I feel really good about this team. Again, and what happens if Will Rogers gets hurt? I mean, I like Mike Wright. I think he's fine. Is a guy that has SEC experience coming over from Vandy, right? But it's just obviously there'd be a huge downgrade because I think we're both high on Will Rogers. We don't think he's a system guy. We think he's really, really good. And defensively, I'm not too worried. I'm not too worried. I think obviously Zach Arnett. I think the offense will help the defense. I think there's still talent there. I think
Yes.
Mississippi State deserves a little bit more respect in terms of just especially defensive. I feel like they produce a ton of talent defensively. Obviously,
Tons.
they're
Like it's
in the
tons.
NFL. And David
Oh
Turner
my.
deserves a ton of credit for that. He's the defensive line
Yeah.
coach there. Um, it, so they do lose some talent, but like they've also lost talent in the past, and they haven't really lost production. Jaden Crumity, I think, comes back from injury. Hopefully, he's finally healthy. He's a guy that they've been high on forever. Damont Russell, another guy that looking to take the next step. They do need some depth, and they do need some like pure pass rushers. So they're gonna have to blitz a little bit more than I think they would like to. But they got good linebacker core. They got like their secondary again. Like Mississippi State produces a really, really good secondary. I mean, they're gonna miss Emmanuel Forbes, and you know there's a defensive back that they also lost to, but they got Sean Preston. They got Elias Furge back. Marcus Banks, if you remember him from recruiting, he was a nice recruit that came to Bama. As a corner, he switched positions into safety, and he seems to be settled in super well. Um, DeCameron Richardson is the next corner from Mississippi State to go on and going to do great things in the NFL. We both love this team. I think we're in agreement. I think the schedule is pretty dang favorable from what it could have been, right? If you're Mississippi State, you always have to play LSU, Bama, A&M. You're always going to be less talented than those teams. And then you get your crossovers. I mean, South Carolina, winnable game. It's obviously on the road, which is tough. Kentucky, very winnable game. It's not going to be easy to get the over for sure, but I think this line's a little bit lower than it should be because of extraneous circumstances that's happened around the program, and obviously very sad and bigger than football for sure. But I think Mississippi State's. I'm hoping they're gonna have a good year because they deserve it. That whole fan base, that whole school, deserves a great year, and I think Zach Arnett's gonna produce that for them.
Yeah, you can get the over 6.5 at plus money, by the way, if that's enticing to viewers out there. Just letting you know. So there's some wicked value out there with that. All right, if you ask me. Let's go Bulldogs. Come on. Let's talk about Ole Miss. I'll let you start on this one.
I am not very high on this team. I think they have a brutal schedule. I think it kind of gets overlooked that they go to Tulane in week 2. I think Georgia Tech is not. It's a Power 5 team. I mean, obviously they're not going to beat Ole Miss, I don't think, at home, but it's not going to be an easy game. I think at Alabama, LSU, Arkansas, like that's kind of a brutal gauntlet. There's a realistic scenario where you're 2-4, right? And going to the bye week, like it's not out of the possibilities. Obviously, I think they're going to be closer to 4-2 than 2-4, but I don't know. I'm worried about depth here. Obviously, you can't doubt Lane Kiffin, which is not why I'm taking the under. which is why I'm not taking the under. I'm sorry, but I do lean it. If I had to bet one, I would bet the under, but I'm not going to bet against Lane Kiffin. I think they have some production coming back. I'm hoping Jackson Dart takes another step. I've liked him since he's been at USC. I think he does good things with his legs. I think him and Quinshon Judkins are just an awesome duo back there. More so because of Quinshon Judkins than Dart, but I think they can do nice things in the running room. Their O-line comes back. Took in 2 transfers for depth pieces, which is nice. Bryson Sanders is a true freshman guy that they're pretty damn high on. They took in, that tight end from Memphis, Caden
Hayden
Prieskorn.
Prieskorn,
That's
very good
yeah,
player.
a very good player. And him and Michael Trigg. Hopefully Michael Trigg's got everything figured out health wise and whatever else. It sounds like they're gonna make up some of that lost production from your wide receivers like Jonathan Mingo and Heath last year. And use a little bit more tight ends in the passing game, which they didn't do last year. So offensively, I don't think it'll take quite a step down as people might think because of what they lost in terms of production wise with Zach Moss and Jonathan Mingo and Heath. But I don't know. Trey Harris, Zachary Franklin. We talked about Zachary Franklin earlier this summer coming in. 2 Conference USA stars, and hopefully they'll be pretty good. Still going to need some pieces behind them. Like I said, the depth worries me here. I think your top line guys, obviously, you're pretty set with, but other than quarterback room, I think I don't love the depth of the offense and more so the defense. We'll get to that, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm not even going to talk about the offense. I think you did a good job there. I am higher on Jackson Dart, I think, this year. I think the fact that he won those battles, I think, tells a lot. I think sounds like he's perhaps grown a little bit. So, but I'll get
Question
into
here though, why did they bring in Spencer Sanders like that? My question is because I was high on him. I thought he did a really good job at Oklahoma State when he was healthy. Why would they bring him? Obviously, you're always looking at competition. I was looking to get better. Like Lane Kiffin's goal is to out recruit Jackson Dart and Quinshon Judkins even and like these talented players. But obviously, Walker Howard I think is more of a future guy. I think he's going to be the future of that room while Jackson Dart plays the next year or two. But were they not happy with Dart? Like, what happened? Did they want depth? Like, because they lost Luke Altmaier to Illinois. Like, what's going on there? You think? And why
yeah.
should I not be worried about Jackson Dart if they had to bring in all this competition for him and he's still the guy?
I mean, look, if you break down his film, you're looking at a guy that, was eager to take off, right? In situations where he shouldn't have. And he was really good at getting out of the pocket, right? You look at that, like only 3.79% sack percentage. It's not necessarily because of the offensive line, right? A lot of that was Jackson Dart, moving well in the pocket, right? But his problem, I think, came 11 interceptions. He didn't really take care of the ball that well. And I don't think Lane Kiffin likes that very much. But I think like it must be that he's just adapted another year in this system. And I think like they must really like what he's seeing. He must be taking care of the ball in camp right now. And he must be, he's got more talented receivers, I think, this year. Well, maybe. Jonathan Mingo was pretty good. I think it's an eye for an eye. I think these guys are really good that he has here. And an upgrade at tight end, Caden Prieskorn. So I don't know. I think they're, I don't know. Either Lane Kiffin is panicking because he didn't think Spencer Sanders is not who he thought he was, or Jackson Dart has maybe taken some steps forward. So I was not so high on Jackson Dart going into. If you asked me in February, I would have said, "Well, he's not getting that job." Come on, what are we talking about? But
Yeah.
I think because he won that job, I'm a little bit more confident in him. But defensively, their entire secondary decimated, and not just decimated because they just lost guys. They lost guys that were pretty good, and they went to big time programs: Ohio State, Oregon, Oklahoma. These are good big time programs, big time players. And I don't think they filled it with guys that are necessarily studs. So, and their secondary was okay last year, but I don't think they did a whole lot to really increase their front seven or the ceiling of their front seven either. So it feels like this defense takes a step back. And if Lane Kiffin can carry this offense to 8 wins, I'd be really impressed. I lean under with you as well. I can't help but think man, this is now Lane Kiffin every year he surprises us, but gosh, I really want to take the under, but I don't know. I was a little bit. It started to get the I started to get the feeling that I was starting to like really like predict the entire SEC West, and I started to realize like, well, the more teams I pick in the SEC West, like the more like volatile my portfolio becomes. Because like if certain teams start doing better than others that I didn't anticipate, then that means that the other teams are not doing maybe as well. So I was like, I'm just gonna pick a couple teams in the SEC West, feed me those guys and whatever. So I did not take the under on this, but it is enticing for sure with a really 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 tough schedule. So, but there's still things to look up and up about. What can you tell me about this front seven though?
Uh, in terms of positives, I think you're that's exactly it. I think your front six, or really front seven, if you count Sunterrain Perkins, who
Yeah, yeah,
I know they're super high on. But he's obviously just a freshman, so you can't expect too much. You shouldn't be relying on him to come in and save your defense. But obviously, Cedric Johnson and Jared Ivey are both back at edge, productive players in the SEC. Not high end guys like you said, but they're not bad. You know what you're going to get from them. Hopefully, they stay healthy because the depth behind them um, is an issue. I think both those guys are pretty good run stoppers. And then interiorly, I think is where you're really going to make your money with JJ Pegas, right, the former Auburn transfer, and Josh Harris from Louisiana Tech. Uh, both that pairing seems to be getting a lot of pressure up in inside, and also a stop on the run. I think it's but as soon as those guys get subbed out, I mean, it's defensive line. You have to be rotating defensive line, especially in the SEC. It's going to be hard. I think there's going to be a pretty big drop off, and that's where they're going to struggle in some games. Linebacker Monty Montgomery comes in. Jeremiah Jean Baptiste transfers in. Um, they're fine. I think Monty Montgomery is an interesting guy. I think a great name, obviously from Louisville. Jeremiah Jean Baptiste, I think, is from UCF. Obviously, they've played quality snaps and they've played quality football, but it'll be up to Pete Golding to get the most out of his defense. And to be honest, it doesn't sound like he did that at Alabama in terms of maximizing talent. Obviously, this is a much different team because it's way less talented. So hopefully he dumbs it down. I think Pete Golding's draw to Ole Miss was really how he was going to recruit. Right, he's going to raise the talent level of the defense with his recruiting. And with Lane Kiffin recruiting the offense, that they're hoping to build a pretty good team. But I think in year one with Pete Golding, he doesn't have the talent, and he lost a lot of the talent, especially in the secondary, to do some of the fun things that he would want to do with the team. And yeah, so I'm definitely cautious. I'm cautious about the team. I'm not going to take the under because I don't want to bet against Lane Kiffin, but I don't know with the schedule too. I'm real quick. Georgia in the crossover. You got at Georgia. Like I think if you go 8-4, I think that is a super super successful year. And that's barely covering your over. I think Vegas is a little bit high on them. I think seven's probably the right number to be at. So they give you half a point or half a win. So if you want to get some value there, I think that's what it is. But I'm not going to be there with you.
Missouri. This is a really interesting team. Eli Drinkwitz, another year for that guy. Lose guys like Dominic Lovick, Isaiah McGuire, Martez Manuel. But like they were in a lot of close games last year, games that slipped away from them a little bit, and they still finished 6-7, a little higher
Including
than I thought
Georgia.
they were. Including Georgia was kind of a slip away game. Um, they went and they may have gotten some guys in the transfer portal, a couple guys, more so depth than anything. But Brady Cook was declared captain the other week of this team. Right, there was a battle between him, Jake Garcia, Sam Horn. He's named captain, so my belief is that you know Brady Cook is probably going to be the starting quarterback headed into week one. And honestly, that makes me not want to take the over. I lean over. If it was Jeff Garcia that was starting, or Jake Garcia, sorry, then I would probably hit it, I think. But I've seen a lot of Brady Cook. I don't know if I'm like a gigantic fan, but the offense still should be good. Theo Weiss, they get from the transfer portal seems pretty good at receiver. Cody Schrader is a very good running back, and I think offensive line they're a little bit underrated. a little underrated there, I think. So I really like this team a lot, and the defense is fine. Defense is fine. So I lean over 6.5. What about you?
Again, yeah, I lean over. I think what draws me away is not necessarily the quarterback position because I think Brady Cook was hurt a little bit. I think the O line was interesting last year. Obviously, he had talent around him, which he didn't really maximize. I think Dom Lovett actually had a great year. Luther Burden's a stud. Um, I think that schedule, Kansas State out of conference is brutal in week 3.
Yeah.
I think Kansas State's a team we're both high on in the Big 12, and you got to go. Your crossovers are at Arkansas, which is not easy to play, and then LSU, which was probably a loss. So, I think there's 4 games that you're going to be playing that should be a loss that you shouldn't win, and so it's going to be up to you to steal a game from South Carolina. We got to maybe Tennessee or Kansas State or Arkansas. Like, gotta beat some teams that you probably shouldn't necessarily beat or that maybe you're not favored in. And I believe is that Memphis week 4 too. That's not gonna be. It's not easy. It's not like you're playing an FCS squad. I mean Memphis has had some talented players there. I think they're not as worried about the losses they have on the offense though with Dom Lovett. I think he's obviously was really productive for him and caught a million passes. But with Eli Drinkwitz, I think that's kind of expected to be in the slot receiver. I think they moved Luther Burden there. I think they're really, really excited about him. And I think they got guys to replace Luther Burden on the outside, moving the inside. I think they got some guys that can replace him on the outside. So the drop off shouldn't be too bad in that wide receiver room. And then they got a new O-line coach, right? Comes over from Houston, I think. Cameron Johnson brings over him with him. Marcellus, I think, yeah, Marcellus comes over from Eastern Michigan. I'm sorry. So hopefully it improves a little bit next year. I don't know how your depth is on the offensive line again, which hesitates me from taking your over. But I think talent-wise, this team's better than last year, but they might be the same record as last year, right? Which would be frustrating for Missouri fans, but it's just the reality of the SEC you're playing in.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, like this is a 7-win team with a 5-win schedule, right? So it's like
Yeah,
it's tough that way. But
gonna meet in the middle.
yeah, I like this team a lot. And look, I don't think Drinkwitz is doing a terrible job there. I don't think he's doing a terrible job. So I'm excited for their season. And I think they're gonna catch someone big lacking. I think they will. I think it might be Tennessee at home. It could be LSU too. That's one game. I know I'm super high on LSU, but it could be LSU. They get them at home, week 6. That's another game that LSU should have circled on their calendars, but maybe it's maybe for LSU it's a little bit of a look ahead game, because I believe they play. Well, they get Auburn the next week after that, after Missouri. So maybe it's not so much of a look ahead game, but um, yeah, I like this team a lot. So any other thoughts on this guy?
Defensively, it was kind of surprising last year and how good it really was compared to the offense. You were hoping the offense would be good, but the defense was the strength last year, and they bring a lot of those guys back. They returned 5 of the top 6 tacklers. Obviously, you got to replace Isaiah McGuire. That's not gonna be easy. DJ Coleman as well. Martez Manuel, a defensive back, but yeah, I think your depth is fine in the secondary. I think you got some returning corners that you feel pretty solid about. Darius Robinson's a guy that an all SEC caliber player. At edge, I don't know how you're gonna, rush the passer. Last year, sack percentage was pretty damn good, right? So how you gonna blitz more with Tyrone Hopper? Like what's gonna happen there to replace some of that production from Isaiah McGuire and DJ Coleman? But yeah, obviously like um, I trust. I think that hopefully they're going to do a pretty good job with the talent they have there. I think Missouri's going to be a tough out for anybody in the SEC, but again, can they get the 7 wins? I don't know.
Talk about South Carolina. This is a team that made me some money last year as well, and I thought it was over. They were at what 6 wins. I needed 7 wins. The over runner was at 6.5. It was at like plus like 144 or something. I was like, oh, I kind of like the value here. And all of a sudden, they lose a game that they shouldn't have to, was it Missouri? and I'm like, oh man. And then I'm headed into the Tennessee week, and I'm like, oh gosh, they only have 6 wins, Tennessee. And then I look next year, I'm like, oh, it's Clemson, of course, because they had on Clemson. I'm like, gosh, I just lost. I just lost money. They
Hope.
stomped both of those
Oh,
teams. And I cashed, and I guess it wasn't a sweat if you're looking at the record, right? Because it cashed by over a win and a half, but or over a win. But gosh, that's crazy that happened. But what's wild though is that they lost so much from that team last year, like a lot. Cam
especially
Smith, Zach
defensively.
Pickens, Darius Rush, Jordan Birch, and yeah, just to name a few, man. Just name a few. Now, of course, offensively, they get Spencer Rattler, Antoine Wells, but they also lose Jaheim Bell to uh Florida
Florida
State.
State. Marshawn Lloyd at USC.
Marshawn Lloyd to USC, who was way underrated in terms of his value for that team. He just got you the yards when he needed them, right? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, like, well, the stats weren't there collectively for the entire season, but when they needed him, like when they needed him against A&M, he was there. Let me tell you. So I don't know. What do you think? I mean, look, they got. I don't know, man. I look at this and it hurts me to say this, but like I think I lean under here. I think I do.
I do too. And I wanted to take the under, and it's not because of how I feel about Shane Beamer, and it's not because of how I feel about the program South Carolina's heading in. It's not even how I feel about the team. I think the team's kind of pretty good. That schedule is brutal. I mean, UNC is not an easy out for them, especially with all the replacements they're gonna have to do um defensively and having to go get Drake May out of the gate and then finish off with Clemson. And hopefully, by week 13, if you're a Clemson fan, like Garrett Riley has your offense cooking and obviously your defense will be pretty good no matter what. But I don't know, man. I see a lot of losses. I see a lot of tough games. I don't know. The problem is like you could pick like the fun part about South Carolina is you could pick them to go 6-6 or 7-5, but you have zero chance of guessing, okay, which games are wins and which games are losses, because they're gonna shock some teams, because they're gonna, with the potential Spencer Rattler, he could just light up a team, like you can go to Texas A&M or go to at Tennessee and just like light them up like he did the past 2 years. I think Georgia, that'll be tough week 3 at week 3. I don't know if you kind of, I'm gonna give them much of a chance to win that game, but yeah, I don't know. Antoine Wells is kind of a beast. I'm glad he's coming back. He finally wants to produce. Like, you saw the highs last year, the last couple games, but he want him to do that for the whole season. And that's why he's back to raise his draft stock. Even Nichols Harbor is a guy that you have to look out for because of his athleticism and his talent there. And they got some other guys, Eddie Lewis, right? Xavier Leggett is back, and he's pretty
Yep.
talented as well with the ball in his hand. They got some young guys too. It's a good group. Even after you lose Jaheim Bell at tight end / running back, whatever he played for him, Trey Knox comes in. Marcus Joshua Simon's a guy that they like as well. They got 2 tight ends. O line is the question mark here, which is why I do lean under. I think they lost a good amount. They had a serious knee injury with Jalen Nichols at left tackle. Super sad to see him go down in the spring game. But people coming back, Eric Douglas, Javon Gwynn at guard, or actually no, those guys you got to replace. I'm sorry, but some young guys you got to plug and play, maybe before they're ready, and that's definitely not something you love, at your offensive line.
Yeah. I mean, so if you were to take the under 6.5, right, the problem is it's juiced like minus 170, right? So you wouldn't really realistically take that unless you were like, okay, it's actually free, but it's not, right?
Yeah, that's
But
I'm just leaning.
if you want a better number and you outline it to 6 in some places, I know DraftKings has got it at 6. You can get it that at plus 105. If that does interest anyone out there. Not something I'm taking necessarily, but I don't hate that at all. Like this team is talented enough to make a bowl game, but like the schedule again is brutal. This is like a 7-win team with a 5-win schedule. Like I've said, I mean, come on. So yeah, everything you said, I agree with. I think special teams luck, well, luck, skill, but special teams, some of it balls bouncing, right, certain ways. I had to deal with it as an A&M fan, so uh, if some of those balls start bouncing in different ways than they did for South Carolina, I think maybe they don't win some of those games that they did, right? I mean, they forced a lot of turnovers on special teams, a lot of them, and it really helped them win some games. It won games that they were not expected to win, especially. So I'm love Shane Beamer. I've said it before. I really like this program. And I took their over last year, and I took their over the year before that. So South Carolina fans, don't hate me. Right? Do not hate me. Right? I also love your recruiting class. So don't
Yep.
think like this is the end of the line here, right? Oh no. But like you guys have a good recruiting class. So there's a lot to look forward to for South Carolina. Like with this new SEC look, the way it's gonna look, I'm glad that you guys are at where you're at and not where you were, before Shane Beamer.
Yeah, and the only thing that yeah, like you said, the future is bright. I think even post Spencer Rattler, I think is it Lenore Sellers or who's the freshman that came in and is playing really really well for you guys. Um, the only thing that disappointed me a little bit is last year. I was really excited about your transfer class. I thought you brought in some high impact guys, and this year it was almost the other way around, where you lost a guy like Jordan Birch, Marshawn Lloyd. I a little bit upset that they didn't go after the transfer portal as hard or didn't have as much success as they had last year with the transfer portal, especially after a year of success and the high that they rode out on um, with beating Clemson and Tennessee. So we'll see. I think Mark Satterfield gone is definitely an upgrade there. I think he didn't really fit with Rattler, and we kind of saw that at the end of the year. There's rumors that he didn't even call the Tennessee and Clemson game, which Spencer Rattler had a great game against. So we'll see what Dow Loggins
Yeah.
does. Hopefully, he makes it a little bit more simple, a little bit more consistent for Spencer Rattler and company there, because I think the potential is there with that skill group and Rattler's arm. We'll see if the O line holds up. Yeah.
Let's talk about Tennessee. Tennessee. Is there a 10 that we see? Do we see 10 wins here? Over under win totals at 9.5. And you lose a lot. You lose Hendon Hooker, Darnell Wright, Jalen Hyatt, Byron Young, and more. This team was the best offense in the entire country last year. And it was close, I guess. There were some other teams that were up there with them, but this was the best offense in the country last year. And it reflects in the record. They were 11-2, 10-2, losing only to Georgia and South Carolina, who we just talked about. But I mean, okay, Tennessee fans, let's relax. Can't be saying, "Oh, if Hendon Hooker didn't get hurt in that South Carolina game, we would have won." No, you guys are not winning that game. No, but that doesn't mean that you guys didn't have a fantastic season last year. That was awesome, and it's great to see Tennessee when Tennessee's good at football, right? And those games are exciting. And Nederland's or Neder, wait,
Neyland Stadium.
Neyland's. Sorry, I was thinking Nederland, Texas. Neyland Stadium is bumping, right? It's awesome, right? And you got a lot of things to be excited for. Joe Milton's there. The wide receiver core is low key electric, right? I'll say that. But 9.5 is a lot. 9.5 is a lot. What do you think? What are you taking?
To me, again, I kind of group them with LSU. I'm actually taking the under here. I think it scares me. I think Alabama, Georgia, and I think those teams, they're gonna go into those games and they're gonna be less talented then, which obviously scares you. And you can go 1-2 in those games. I don't think you're gonna beat Bama again, especially on the road. I think Georgia's humming again this year, especially by week 12. Hopefully getting healthy at the running back position. But you got South Carolina in the East as well. And then you got, look at these road games in the East. You have to play at Florida, you have to play at Kentucky, and you have to get at Missouri. Like, those are games that I wouldn't call them toss-ups, but those are very losable games. And I think this roster and this, quarterback, especially Joe Milton, a guy, I wouldn't call him boom or bust, but I would definitely say you got some question marks to him. And I don't know how he is consistently, like with his accuracy issues. Um, like how can he do game to game? Every game in and game on the SEC have to be really productive. Especially with the margin of error of that offense that they do run. I don't see them winning 10 games this year. I think they're going to slip up a couple times. I couldn't tell you who they are. Outside of Bama and Georgia, I think there's one other loss on that schedule at least, which is why I think that's why I'm taking the under.
Yeah, I push. I don't lean over or under. I'm not with you on the under train there. I just think I'm a big Joe Milton fan. I think he's really really good. Um, in terms of like what he could be really really good. If he's
Yes.
like really 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 good, right? And Hendon Hooker is a fine quarterback, right? He just
Henniker's
had a
a
lot of
really good quarterback. I'm sorry, he's a really good quarterback. I think he had a
yeah.
really good year.
He's had really good 2 years. He had a really good 2 years with them. Um, I guess we'll see if that was like system based. We'll see how he does in the Lions, but I think these receivers are crazy, dude. Like, if there was like one like Brew McCoy, Squirrel White, Dante Thornton. I mean, these guys are absolute speedsters, right? And if there's someone that's going to be able to get the ball to them, right, like out 40 yards downfield, it might be Joe Milton. Joe Milton might be your guy. So I think like another year in the system, I think benefits him greatly. I really trust Josh Heupel. I think he's a very, very, very good player. They don't have what's his name anymore? That went to Alex Golish. They don't have him anymore. Alex Golish.
Yep.
He's gone, but we'll see. We'll see how they do there. I think like the range of outcomes for this team, I think, is really large, which means I can't lean a certain direction. Like I think this team could go 11-1, but I also think this team could go 7-5.
Yep.
7-5 seems pretty harsh, but let's be real, Tennessee fans. You know what that looks like. So, and I know what it looks like as a guy who's an A&M fan, right? I know what it's like to have a team that is expected to win a lot of games, and it just not to happen, right? And I worry about this defense a little bit. Um, some aspects of it. I think they overperformed on defense last year, which run game wise, because I think a lot of teams were trying to play catch up and they were throwing the ball a lot, and that led to some turnovers that benefited Tennessee greatly. Um, even though Tennessee's secondary was not particularly awesome last year, if you can see the number, yeah, defensively, like teams threw the ball against them more than any other team, but also they were playing catch up, right? So that's a reason, and it also alleviates some of the stress from the run game, right? But if they're not scoring at the clip that they were last year, it took them. It took the number one offense in the country, right, and a top. mm, I'll say I don't really know what the number is. I'd say top 30, 35 defense.
Opponent
20.
adjusted, like
Opponent Justin is probably
for
top 25.
based on like what the positions you were put in terms of like, of course, people are going to put up crazy like yards on you, especially passing the ball. But in terms of like actually like winning games and like making winning plays, I think they were pretty darn good for the circumstances they were put in.
Yeah. So I'm a fan of Joe Milton. I like the receivers they have. There's talent there. I think they lost a couple pieces on the offensive line, but I don't think it's like I think the offensive line benefits a little bit in the system because you don't have like crazy 7-step drops. It's really consistent every time, right? So you know where your quarterback's going to be every time.
Yeah,
So I do think um, it helps in that sense. Hopefully they can run the ball a little bit this year, but again, that might be a little difficult with some of these teams that you're playing against this year.
yeah, I'm
Um, yeah, but I we'll see. We'll see. I mean, like, good luck to Tennessee. I'll say football, SEC football is better when you're better. So I hope you're really good this year too.
you got to give competition to Georgia. I think absolutely like
Yeah,
Tennessee and even recruiting wise in terms of like prevent taking a couple guys. Oh, maybe Bama or LSU or A&M or Georgia would take, or even Florida would pluck a guy from the state of Tennessee or the surrounding states. But Tennessee goes
Texas
and gets him
A&M.
like that. Yeah,
Tennessee fans they'll know all about that with Walter Nolan.
yeah, which is exact. So look, not that I'm rooting for him because I'm putting money against him, but I think I'm happy that Tennessee's back and been playing well, and they have a coach that they trust and Josh Heupel that I trust as well. But I don't see it this year. I think 9-3, 9.5 is just big, very big number.
I agree. I agree. Well, I agree. It's a large number. I'm not leaning any direction though. But good luck to the Volunteers.
What do we do? Gig 'em,
Gig 'em, baby. Come on. Let's go. I'll just start talking as a Texas A&M fan. Last year it was a disappointment. That's not a secret. I get it. We went 5-7. It was a disaster, right? And I'll tell you why it was a disaster. Okay, offensively, we were not very good. We were not very good. Got our offensive coordinator out of there. Who do we get? Bobby Petrino. A lot of question marks, right? Like, how's that going to fit with Jimbo? Jimbo's hinted a little bit that Bobby Petrino, when he has called plays, has done a good job. We'll see if he actually gives up that spot. But I think really hurt them in certain games that they could have won, like Ole Miss. They could have won that game. Like Appalachian State. Oh, gosh. Those two teams ran the ball very effectively against Texas A&M. If you look at that, right, 61% of the time teams are running the ball against us. That is a ridiculous clip. Now, that's even higher when McKinley Jackson was not playing, but guess who's back and healthy? That would be McKinley Jackson, right? So really the only players that you lost in this team that are super important, right? Antonio Johnson, invaluable. He was really good. Jalen Jones, good athletic corner with length on the edge. Tunmise Adelier went to Michigan State. I think he was a really good player, but the defensive line is pretty loaded, so I'm not super worried about that. What do you get back? Well, pretty much everyone I said. Pretty much everyone. I mean, look, Bryce Anderson, gosh, he is special. Let me tell you, that's an all SEC defensive player this year. I'm going to tell you that right now. He's filling right where Antonio Johnson was, him, or even Jared Kerr. I don't know. Both of those players are really freaking talented. So, I don't know. I'm a big fan of him. Kenley Jackson's good. The defensive line is crazy. What do you have? 6 5-stars on the defensive line? 5-5-stars on this defensive line? It's gonna be crazy, right? And if DJ Durkin can actually figure out, right, we're gonna find out week 2 against Miami against a really good offensive line. If we can actually, stop that offensive line, really get some push there, right? Maybe Henry Parrish doesn't have a great day. Maybe get some pressure on the quarterback more so than we did last year. I think that defense could be really good. Of course, we were worried about linebacker depth. I mean, Chris Russell, a lot of tackles, but he's okay, right? I do like Ezra and Cooper. I just don't think he's a very side to side, like lateral guy, right? I think that's tough, and I do think DJ Durkin did not put our linebackers in very good situations last year, especially when he only ran, like the 3-man fronts. Asking our linebackers to do too much when the reality is the talent is in the defensive line. I think he thought that, we were so talented there that we only need 3 guys, right? Let's, but I don't know. 7.5 is a discount, so I'm taking the over for sure. 100%. I got it at I think minus 145 a while ago. I think it's at minus like 180 now. This is a discount. This is a legit discount. You get Alabama at home. That's a winnable game. You know that game's a touchdown, by the way? It's down to a touchdown. 7 points. It's a winnable game. That means you're basically giving A&M a 33% chance to win that game. A third chance. 1 in 3 times they play that game, they win that game, according to odds. That's doable. At Tennessee, I think that game is about 8 points, 9 points. I think they match up better with Tennessee with that secondary. It's crazy. You get Tony Grimes in the transfer portal, Sam McCall, Josh DeBerry, along with Tyreek Chappell and Jordan Gilbert, and Damani Richardson comes back. That secondary is going to be one of the best secondaries in the country, likely. And if they can run some man and really run with those boys in Tennessee, I think they match up really well there. Offensively, the question mark turns to the offensive line. They were really beat up last year. They're injured, but guess what? Every single one of them is back. 2 other times that's happened, 2020, 2012. Both really good years where you had a chance to make the college football playoffs one year, and then you had a chance to make the national championship another year, but you lost an early game to Florida with Johnny Manziel. I will say Ruben Fothery has been beat up. Hopefully he'll be back soon. Chase Besantis, the true freshman. All you hear is just this kid from New Jersey just being a dog. And he might start at right tackle for these guys week 1, which would be crazy. I love a good true freshman starting at tackle in the SEC. Of course, Donovan Green goes down at tight end. Unfortunate season-ending injury, but I think this tight end room is loaded. And even more loaded than the tight end room is the receiver room. Oh, my goodness, it's so good. All right, Anais Smith comes back. Did people forget that he got hurt last year? People forget? I think they forgot, all right? But he's back. Evan Stewart, Well, no one's forgot about him because he is very, very good at football. And he'll be one of the better receivers in the SEC this year. We saw it, I mean, against Alabama. He was fantastic. I mean, he was good all year. He was good all year. The numbers don't show it necessarily for him, but if he had some better balls thrown his way, which I think he will this year with Connor Wegman at quarterback, I think he will get that. Noah Thomas, spring offensive MVP. That dude has Mike Thomas or Mike Evans size and speed, which is ridiculous, right? And if he's winning spring MVP practice or spring MVP offensive MVPs over other guys in this receiving room, including Moose Muhammad as well, who I haven't even mentioned, who, if you'll remember from the LSU game, was ridiculous. Mississippi State was ridiculous. I mean, um, yeah. So after those four guys, it gets kind of interesting because you don't have really a whole lot of depth. You're asking some freshmen to make some big time plays, but this is a good team. Give me the over. Running back room loaded. Quarterback room fine. Figured out. We believe. Wide receiver room loaded. Offensive line enough experience. Defensive line loaded. Linebacker maybe a little bit thin. Secondary loaded. Right. All it comes down to is, can we coach these guys? Can DJ Durkin figure it out in run defense? And can Bobby Petrino put it all together?
Yeah, I kind of agree with everything you just said. I'm a little bit more concerned about tight end than you are. I think Donovan Green, I was really high, and I thought he was going to be a guy that was going to take that second year jump. I'm a little bit worried about depth behind him. Max Wright's a good blocker. Jake Johnson's high recruit. Still have to be shown on the field and how they can, impact the passing game. 7.5 is way too low for this talented of a team. I think Vegas almost over adjusted after what happened last year. The thing is, I can't touch this line I can't touch it because I think that I feel like the past 3 years we've been, like last year and the year before that, you and I have both been pounding the table for the over, but it just hasn't hit. And so it scares me off a little bit. I do think Connor Wigman, the quarterback, I'm expecting him to take a big jump. I think there'll be a noticeable difference with the quarterback play that he has there. I think the offense, I am not concerned at all about the offense. I am concerned about stopping the run. I like the deep. I know the talent in the defensive line room. I know it's there. I get it. It still scares me because what I saw last year was embarrassing for a team that talented to just get bullied up front and game after game against teams that should not have. Linebacker, like you said, definitely a question mark. Hopefully the defensive line can kind of protect that with the way they can just fill gaps and whatever else. Rushing the passer is the only concern. I get on the inside. I love Walter Nolan, McKinley Jackson, Shamar Stewart at end. I think if you're looking for edge guys that can like really bend and get on the edge, where's that going to come from? Is it Fadil Diggs? Is it Anai White? Is it Malik Sola? Are those guys ready to go? I hope so. But again, I'd like to be seen. Tony Grimes is a guy I'm looking forward to be playing just because of how talented he was. And I think they're going to get the best out of him. Is the cornerback coach still there? Is it still, what's his name? Antonio Cromartie, right?
No, he's not there anymore.
Okay. Well, that's too bad for Tony Grimes. But regardless, I think getting out of North Carolina is good, a win for him. That's the questions to ask you, though. In terms of last year, is this a better roster than last year, top to bottom?
Yes, 100%.
I mean,
Yeah,
it's the
there were
same
a lot of
roster, except everyone gets better, right?
Yeah, except like some of the depth transfers, right? I guess Chris Marshall, Denver Harris was a big loss in the transfer portal. I think that was probably our biggest loss. But I mean, come on,
I
this
think
is
the
a better
American
team.
needs to be.
This is a better team.
Yeah. So last year, nobody could really see 5-7 coming. But I think if you went back and looked at it, I think there were some writings on the wall for what could happen if injuries hit, if worst case scenario happened. So what worst case scenario, what does that look like here? Is 5-7? Is that even possible with this team?
Dude, 5-7 last year was worse than worst case scenario. Like that was injury luck combined with a flu game against Florida where 30 players go down with the flu. Like what is that? Right? Like Appalachian State, I mean, it was ridiculous. I think DJ Durkin got a little confident. DJ Durkin, let me tell you this. Figure it out, DJ Durkin, or I want you out the door because there's no reason that we should have been 124th in rushing yards per game, 107th in yards per attempt allowed with that defensive line. I get it that there were some injuries. McKinley Jackson was huge. Tumise Adelia actually went down as well. But come on, I know you were there super young, but you were way too talented. Way too talented. App State, how is Jalen Noel able to run all over you? Chase Bryce, how are they able to run the ball over you? That does not make sense. Figure it out. I get Ole Miss. Arkansas, surprisingly, we stopped. We had an issue with mobile quarterbacks too. I'd like him to, really figure that out. And that comes a lot of like with linebackers, not having really fast lateral linebackers. So yeah, to me, what's weird though is like I'm so kind of like desensitized to a bad offense is that like I'm not actually worried about the offense this year. I'm worried that I think the defensive line gets a lot better because they're just way more in shape. These guys are bigger, faster, and stronger than they were last year.
Healthy.
Healthy. I'm not super worried about that, but I do think if we see DJ Durkin misuse this defensive line again, I'm gonna lose it because that could be your worst case scenario, right? If Connor Wigman goes down, you see Max Johnson again, right? I mean, he's okay, but I don't know. I think injuries is what kind of brings you down, or just weird like flu games. Like this the floor of this team is 7 wins. That is in my eyes, that is the floor of this talented team, right? That's how talented they are. That's the floor. And if that's the floor of this team and the over-under win total is at 7.5, I'm taking the over every single time, right? And it's really easy for me to get biased, like about all that stuff. But like, just go look at the composite talent ratings, right? Go see how actually physically talented this team is, right? Go look at their size. Look how big they are, right? Go look at these preseason magazine awards, which don't necessarily mean anything, but like there is reason to believe that like they're loaded, right? And if Bobby Petrino is the right hire and DJ Durkin can figure it out with his talent, like it just comes down to coaching. That is it. And I'm banking on Bobby Petrino kind of knowing what he's doing. When I interviewed AJ a while back, if you guys are watching and haven't checked out that interview, interviewed AJ Denota a while back, a few weeks ago. And he was talking about how he was really interested in getting to see a lot of pre-snap motion, right? And there were a lot of more wrinkles in the play. And I think the players are starting to buy into this playbook. And if you saw on Texags radio the other day when Evan Stewart was on, Evan Stewart is also very, very excited. He literally could not contain his excitement about how much different this offense looks and how much more confident everyone is in it. Feed me the over. Feed me the over.
Lastly, I can't believe we didn't touch on it. Was Devin Achane? I think it's a stud. By the way, I think I think in terms of just like how electric he was, you're gonna miss him. Amari Daniel's a good player. Le'Veon Musk good player. Believe in Ruben Owens. Hopefully, by week 4 he's ready to go. Maybe week 2. We both love him, right? We think he's gonna be really good. Lastly, what is a good season? Like, what would you be happy with? What buys Jimbo Fisher a year off the hot seat? Is it 8-4 with this schedule? Does it have to be 9-3?
Okay, 8-4. He's continues to be on the hot seat, right? If you go 9-3 and you don't lose to the Mississippi schools, keyword, because he has not done that in the last 2 years. I think he's fine. It's looking up because then he gets himself another year because then the next year is like the year because this entire class becomes like the guys, the juniors, right? Yeah. That's when we win national championships, right, with juniors and seniors. So, yeah, it'll be interesting. Still a lot of young guys on this team, but also a lot of great leadership here that I see. McKinley Jackson, Fidel Diggs. I see Layden Robinson on the offensive side of the ball being a leader, Anais Smith being a leader on the offensive side of the ball. So it was way younger of a team last year. I just have a lot of faith. So, yeah, big fan. So,
Gig 'em.
Yeah, what are your last thoughts?
Gig 'em. For the sake of A&M and for the sake of the fan base, I hope they go over. I'm rooting for them. I think there's no reason not to. I'm not going to touch it, but I want to watch good football coming from A&M, especially on the offensive side of the ball, and I'm excited to do it.
Vanderbilt, our last team. Oh, they had a really good season last year. 5 wins. That's a lot. That's a lot for Vanderbilt. I mean, look, you lose some guys, Ray Davis, Anthony Orji, Max Worship, but it feels like the base of this team is actually kind of stuck together. So Vanderbilt fans, you should be pretty excited about that. Over-under win total of 3.5. I'm gonna go out and say it. I'd lean over. Not gonna take it, right? Because that requires them to win a game in the SEC, likely, or against Wake Forest. But uh, yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of this team in terms of like where it was 2 years ago and where it is now. I like AJ Swan at quarterback. Will Shepard's a great receiver in the SEC. The defense is still gonna be really questionable, but that's okay, man. I that's okay. Look, I think this team can win 4 games, I think, maybe, but I'm not going to take it, but I think it can definitely win 4 games.
Yeah, I'm gonna lean over. Like you said, I'm not gonna take it because I think Wake Forest is not a for sure win, and there's no other games that are for sure wins where I even feel good about them going and getting a win. The problem is we could be kicking ourselves as early as week 3. Like they could be on the flight home from Las Vegas and they could be 4-0, and they'd already cashed the over. And Clark Lee is obviously everyone's celebrating him and the job he's done at Vanderbilt, regardless of what he does in the SEC. AJ Swan's the guy I like. I'm excited for him to come back. Full year as a starter in the offseason, offense coordinator, and him both come back. Um, I don't know. I think the Will Shepard, good player, Jaden McGowan, a guy I look out for. Gamarian Carter, London Humphreys even. It's a legit group. It's a legit SEC group at wide receivers. The O line was actually pretty good. It played about as well as it could have last year. They have to replace the right tackle. They'll figure that out. Hopefully they do improve. We'll see what happens. I know they're not super optimistic about it. But if everyone comes back, ideally you'd be as good as you were last year, if not a little bit better. And I think that you would take that if you're AJ Swan and Clark Lee. They're over in Vanderbilt. What say you?
Yeah, I mean, it feels like I've heard people take it. I don't blame those people at all. I mean, defensively, I still worry a little bit for sure, but I mean, you don't lose a ton on defense, right? I mean, like, is that a good thing or a bad thing? I don't know. Like maybe just another year of these kids growing, getting better. Uh, Maybe it'll be up and up. And like you said, the offensive line was like not for Vanderbilt standards, it was pretty good. And looks like they get a lot of these guys back. So feels pretty good. Feels pretty good to be a Vanderbilt fan right now, even though your over under win total is at 3.5. But compared, come on, it's all relative, right? So
Well, and the transfer, it's hard to overhaul a roster in an offseason. We knew it's going to take a good amount of time for Clark Lee to get Vanderbilt competing for a bowl game and SEC wins because Vanderbilt's so hard to get into in the transfer portal. Like they only took a couple guys and it was like from Notre Dame or like like Stanford or like it was like hard to get guys. You couldn't just go and get a 5-star bust from A&M to come over and get in. It's hard for Vanderbilt. So I'm excited about them. I think hopefully there's some upside on the defensive line. They got some depth. They got some young guys. They hopefully can rush the passer. So they're going to rotate guys in, which they haven't really had at Vanderbilt in a while in terms of having depth. To be able to be fresh bodies there. Linebacker, like you said, lost Anthony Orji. I think that's tough. Hopefully a guy, Prince Coley is the guy everyone's waiting for to come in from Notre Dame. Former like top 100 player in the country. He's actually a legit talented player. The connection there is Clark Lee. Clark Lee, I think, was coach at Notre Dame. So he recruited him to Notre Dame, and we'll see what he can do there. I don't know about right away, but hopefully get started. Once you get SEC play, he can be an impact player for you. And the DBs, there's some returner guys. I mean, you got to replace Max Worship, but veteran safeties coming back, cornerbacks. You're gonna rely on some young guys for some depth, but we'll see what happens there. I'm not taking the over, but I think they could surprise a team in the SEC, and maybe even go over to Wake and get a win there. At Wake Forest.
which team do you think that is?
If I had to pick one, it would be Georgia. No, I'm kidding. You're looking at Auburn week 10. You're looking at, you go to Florida. I mean, Florida could be sleepwalking in that game. You have no idea. Missouri, I guess if the Kentucky, if the bottom falls out on an offensive line, which I don't know if it will by week 4. Yeah, I don't know. There's some I don't know. Like at Ole Miss, no way. At South Carolina, no thank you. And at Tennessee, no thank you. Like
I think it might be South Carolina. I don't know. That'd be hilarious.
Really?
I think if it was, I think that'd be hilarious. Because then I don't think South Carolina's making a bowl game. I don't think.
Well,
But
no, because you can't. No.
yeah, but yeah, good luck to Vanderbilt. I hope you win. I hope you win all of your SEC games. I hope you
I
do.
know.
As long as you're not playing Texas A&M, so I hope you win all of your SEC games.
They'll be there one year eventually.
Yeah. Award watch lists. Give it to us. Who is your SEC player of the year?
I'm gonna go Carson Beck as my quarterback. Carson Beck. I think he's like we talked about earlier in the episode. You believe he's going to be a Heisman Trophy candidate. I think if he is, there's no reason he shouldn't be Player of the Year in the SEC, especially if Georgia goes 12-0, 13-0, wins it. I'm not picking him to win it all. I don't think, but I think Carson Beck is going to get Player of the Year because he's going to put up crazy numbers.
Yeah, I agree. And because you picked him, well, I think I might have picked this guy anyways. Give me a defensive player. Give me Harold Perkins to win SEC Player of the Year. As crazy as that sounds, but dude, I mean, he's probably the best defensive player in the SEC, if you ask me, which is saying a lot, right? He's got like Dallas Turner, Jaheim Otis, Bryce Anderson. I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of, I mean, Malachi Starks. I mean, do we want to go into Georgia's defense? I mean, so it would be pretty crazy if you won it, but I think he's that good. He's that good. My SEC Offensive Player of the Year, I'll take Carson Beck, though. Yes,
Okay.
sir. I think he's that good, man. I'm with you right there. He's so good, and they're gonna win ball games too. Like, there's no reason not vote for him.
I'm gonna go KJ Jefferson. I think he's in for a big time year if he stays healthy. A dark horse. Give me Jace McClellan. Jace McClellan. That's running back from
Ooh,
Alabama. I think he could put up like you saw Derrick Henry that one year. I don't think it's quite like that where he's gonna have a monster year in terms of like Heisman Trophy winner, but I think he could have a really, really good year if he stays healthy and that offensive line does what I think it's gonna do.
yeah,
As
and
defensive
then
player of the year, sorry, I'm going Harold Perkins. I'm gonna steal your player of the year. I
yeah,
think he's even though I'm not high in LSU as everybody else, he's not the reason why he's a stud.
yeah, he is a stud, and I'll just go. Well, because you took Harold Perkins, he would be mine. He will be mine, but I'll add another one, right? Throw it in there. I mean, Malachi Starks is unbelievable.
Yeah,
So there's a lot of guys you can go with this pick, but yeah, give me Malachi Starks. I know he's gonna play. I know he's gonna have a huge impact. So SEC newcomer of the year. I think there's like, well, there's not a lot of them to be honest that like I think are really could go with a guy like Omar Spates, but feed me Devin Leary at quarterback for Kentucky. Even though I'm maybe not the highest on Kentucky's team this year, I think of the new coming quarterbacks and offensive players from different conferences, I think he might be the biggest impact of all of them.
for sure. I agree. I'm high on Devin Leary. I think hopefully that offensive line, keeps him upright all year. I'm gonna go the freshman route. I'm gonna go Caleb Downs. I mean, we talked about him with our Bama preview. He's damn good. He's gonna be the key in the secondary there for him. They love him. I don't want to call him Minka Fitzpatrick quite yet, but if anybody is, it's gonna be him. They're really high on him, and so am I. In terms of
Yeah, he's crazy. He's crazy good.
coach of the year, give me obviously I'm gonna go Saban just because I'm spoiler alert, I'm gonna pick them to win it all or to win the SEC here. But in terms of a dark horse, give me Hugh Freeze. I'm gonna stick in the state of Alabama.
Okay.
I'm taking the over on I think if they win 8 games, God forbid 9 games somehow with that schedule, he's gonna deserve a lot of credit. And he's gonna get it. So I think maybe he's a dark horse to win it, an award there for him.
Yeah, I mean, I think who do I think it's gonna be? I think it's probably gonna be. I don't know. Okay, look, I'll give you my pick though because I think he doesn't have to win the whole thing to win this award. Give me Zach Arnett, right? What he's done. Are you serious? First
Yep.
year, right? And keeps the roster intact. And if he wins some ball games in the SEC and actually puts himself in a picture where he's going to a great bowl game, right? And maybe even competing some potentially at some point for the West, right? I don't think they'll win it, but I think they could be up there competing, right? And that'll be definitely my uh, Mississippi State. spoiler, will be my conference dark horse. My conference winner, give me LSU. Boom. Plus 450.
Wow.
Boom. And you want my Mississippi State dark horse? Try plus 12,000. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. If you want to get stinky, if you want to get smelly, try Mississippi State at plus 12,000. Do I think they're going to win it? No. But we're talking about dark horses. They're like on DraftKings. I have it pulled up here, actually. They are the number. They have the third worst. They're tied for the second worst odds in the SEC. It's them and Missouri, which both of those teams to me seems criminal. But
yeah.
and Georgia's minus 115 to win the whole thing, just for reference. What about
Yeah,
you?
I like
I guess
that.
you're picking Bama.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Bama.
They're plus
I'm really
300,
behind
by the
them.
way. Plus
I'd rather
300,
go
which is,
national championship, by the way, because
but I don't know. Like, when have you ever seen Alabama conference winner to be plus 300?
I
That's
know, which
a
is
pretty good
it feels
price.
like a safer bet. Dark horse, I'm gonna go Auburn again. I'm gonna stick in that. I think I don't know if they quite have the talent to do it, but Hugh Freeze has done, bigger things. If Hunter Henry didn't ladle the ball back, like 30 yards one play, like Hugh Freeze would probably have an SEC championship in his belt. So he's done it at Ole Miss. I don't know year one at Auburn, but we'll see. I like the team there.
Yeah, I mean that. I think it's a good pick. I might regret not taking their. I might regret not taking their over, but we'll see. But anyways, thanks guys for checking us out. That was our SEC conference breakdown. If you want to see our other videos on conference breakdowns, there's actually a playlist that we have on YouTube where you can check out all of those, including individual videos for just your team. Right. So thanks again for watching. Keep staying tuned in. The season is starting. Come on. This Thursday, let's get excited. I know we had week 0, but now we ride. Right now we ride. So make sure to also check out if you're watching this far, right, and you want to send maybe a part of it to your friends, well, don't worry. There will be videos posted about the same time. Well, half of them will be posted at the same time this one comes out. Half of them will be posted the next day. And those videos will be of the individual teams. So if you want to send it to a buddy who's a fan of a specific team and you don't want to send them this entire thing, right, because you know that they won't listen to the entire thing, you can just send them that video and that'll do just the trick. So be sure to check us out on Twitter at the Redshirt Soft and check out our email. Send us in some questions. We love feedback. We love hearing what you guys are thinking about. At that email is theredshirtsophomore@gmail.com. Any last thoughts, CD?
We're back a week away. Don't forget us when you get into football season. We're gonna have analysis. We're gonna have breakdown of every game, previews, whatever it is. So we're gonna be busy during the year, but excited to hear from you guys. Yeah, let us know.
Yep, and we'll see you guys next time.